sin. And that's what prayer's about. We battling them demons and we casting them out. Oh man, it's coming again. I need Yeshua's blood because I'm covered in sin. And that's what prayer's about. We be battling them demons and we casting them out. Breathing in deception and exhaling common sense iniquity. In my mouth I need more than a common rinse. From a perspective I appear to be a masterpiece, but these soul ties braided, woven like a tapestry. Back to me it's lacking me, but actually it's tracking me. I'm running from temptation cause these demons keep attacking me. A higher gives me power, yeah, something like a battery, but I'm programmed by sin like they built me in a factory. I be doing research cause it's all about them facts to me. I left being a Christian cause I choose to live factually. They reject the law and be transgressing casually in the doctrine that they teach. I'll leave you as a casualty. Oh yeah, it's coming again. I need Yeshua's blood because I'm covered in sin. And that's what prayer's about. We battling them demons and we casting them out. Oh man, it's coming again. I need Yeshua's blood because I'm covered in sin. And that's what prayer's about. We be battling them demons and we casting them out. Sin is in my members, embedded in my flesh. The Ruach contradicts, so it's hard for them to mesh. When I feel convicted, I remember what the scriptures say. Dead to sin, alive to Christ, so righteousness can cast away the flaw of sin. Appalled with sin, but really it's the law of sin. Romans 7:23, Paul's twisted up by wicked men. Yasha's my example, he gave the blueprint, but I'm bounded by carnality, I just need to repent. I make presentations just to share the information. No fake Hebrew Israelites thinking only they are the nation. They twist up the scriptures with faulty application, and the doctrines that they preach says Esau's the Caucasian. Oh man, it's coming again. I need Yeshua's blood because I'm covered in sin. And that's what prayer's about. We be battling them demons and we casting them out. Oh man, it's coming again. I need Yeshua's blood because I'm covered in sin. And that's what prayer's about. We be battling them demons and we casting them out. There have no temptation taking you but such as is common to man. But a higher is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above what ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. 1 Corinthians 10:13. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Most High hath promised to them that love him. James 1:12. Submit yourselves therefore to a higher, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. Temptation.
All praise to the top. Whipping like I run it from the cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I'll stay with the rock. I'm blessed. All praise to the top. Whipping like I run it from the cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I'll stay with the rock. I'm blessed.
To the host with the most, no cap. Got a lot of love to show, and it with a double tap. On hearts, no space, love him all of my days. His thoughts are higher, gaining all of his ways. Figured out the mud through the pain and the grief, like a vegan lifestyle, no beef in the streets. That's a blessing now these days. Show the Most High's love will go a long way. I'm a servant, he the light. Do this R&B thing, I'm the plug, he the light. Got all my spectacles, cause my blessings out of sight. Make it weary, don't mount up and take flight. The Ruach move me, yeah. Oh, the Ruach soothe me, yeah. Stay wavy and groovy. He make my life just like a movie.
All praise to the top. cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I stay with the rock. I'm blessed. All praise to the top. Whipping like I'm running from the cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I stay with the rock.
Thankfully, y'all was with me when my tank was on E. Ups and downs, they keep me balanced, helps me stay on my feet. All that I have is all I need. Until I have more, what's mine is for me. I'm happy to say that I'm never in need. I limit my wants cause they make me compete. They say, you good? I say yes. How have you been? I say blessed. They say I come up on some hard times, then you got me say less. I'm just cut from a different cloth. You can't stitch me to any garment. I look on high for direction while people trusting in garment. I earned my stripes and I wore them like old Adidas. So when my soul is fragile and worn like older sneakers, I pour my thoughts on wax and you blaring them over speakers. Of course, I will be fine. I got faith like them old believers. Believe me, I'm not conceited. I know the Creator sees me. With Him backing me, these problems like breakfast, they over easy.
Making sure I give all praises to the top. Bold as a lion, young David with a rock.
All praise to the top. Whipping like I run it from the cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I stay with the rock. I'm blessed. All praise to the top. Whipping like I'm running from the cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I stay with the rock. I'm blessed. All praise to the top. Whipping like I'm running from the cops. I ain't gotta worry about no ops. Young David, I stay with the rock. I'm blessed. All praise to the top.
All praises.
Whipping like I'm running from the cops.
Whipping like I'm running.
I ain't gotta worry about no ops.
No way,
Young David, I stay with the rock. I'm blessed.
I'm blessed.
I'm blessed.
Yes, I am.
Even though I'm going through.
When I'm going through.
In the midnight.
When I need you.
In the noonday.
I call your name. Oh, what am I?
All praises, man. All praises. See, the Most High told me, man, give him a proverb. So
They call me prophet when they run up, so I put the gun up. Started from the bottom, but now I'm on the come up. Staying on my grind, I'ma hustle till the sun up. I kick it with my ox, so you know we put that pun up. Yeah, life's different when you anointed. Them demons come hard when they know that you've been appointed. Was stubborn in my ways, on the way to my grave. Stiff neck me for the truth, now my spirit is double jointed. Gotta stay ready for war. I put on the whole armor of God. When my brethren get the call, it's on cause they know that we finna ride. Need to be humble in the spirit, but be bold in your countenance. And beware opposition. Even your friends and your family can be counterfeit. I'm just trying to find my way. It's my destiny, I know I got a part to play. Can't wait to see a high on that righteous day. New Jerusalem, I know I got a right to stay. You need to take heed to this wisdom, and you gotta stay away from folly. Cause everybody say they in the truth, but the truth is not in everybody. Hit back to them punchlines, ballin' like it's crunch time. Hungry for the word like I'm standing in the lunch line. I know you got a purpose, you can find it with enough time. And seek his wisdom daily cause you gonna have a tough time. I seek the Messiah, no hesitation. Elohim ain't no need for abbreviation. Follow the laws, you know heavenly legislation. And these lyrics overhead like I'm spitting at elevation. Woo! And to my sisters, I'm sorry for how you treat it. Remember y'all some queens and the enemy been defeated. I know sometimes it's hard and your spirit can feel depleted. Go to Proverbs 31 and then let me know when you read it. Yeah, this whole world artificial. We need to get back to reality. How we come from a line of kings, but we lost sheep cursed with a peasant mentality. There's redemption in the Most High, but it's up to us to seize it. They say prophet got the juice, but the Holy Spirit was the one that had to squeeze it. Need to take heed to this wisdom, and trust you gotta stay away from folly. Cause everybody say they in the truth, but the truth is not in everybody.
I'm just trying to find my way. It's my destiny, I know I got a part to play. Can't wait to see a high on that righteous day. New Jerusalem, I know I got a right to stay. You need to take heed to this wisdom, and you gotta stay away from folly. Cause everybody say they in the truth, but the truth is not in everybody.
I'm just trying to find my way. It's my destiny, I know I got a part to play. Can't wait to see a high on that righteous day. New Jerusalem, I know I got a right to stay. You need to take heed to this wisdom, and you gotta stay away from folly. Cause everybody say they in the truth, but the truth is not in everybody.
I'm just trying to find my way. Find my way. Can't wait to see a high on that righteous day. Righteous day. Heed to this wisdom. You gotta stay away from folly. Heed to this wisdom. But the truth is not in everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, family. It's your boy Solemn Prophet here, and Professor S will be here shortly. My A1 Day 1, and this is Shabbat Talk. I appreciate you guys for being in here. More and more people going to be slowly trickling on in, but I'm your host. Professor S is my co-host, and we dedicate every week, every Shabbat to giving information to the people, whether it be a presentation, a lesson, a video, a word, whatever the case may be. We are here to pour into the people because we have been blessed to have, knowledgeable, righteous, and loving individuals who have taken the time to pour into us. So with that being said, family, we always got to start off with giving the Most High his due. So all praises to the Most High, to whom all things have come from whom all blessings flow. Without him, we would not be here. Without him, we would not have this information. We would not have these amazing individuals with us each week. So I want to definitely, first and foremost, give him his praise, give him his worship, give him his due, give him his credit, his kudos, whatever you name it, whatever word you can come up with, he deserves it. And it's still not enough, but I thank him anyway. So all praises to the Most High. All right, I see more people trickling on in, so it's time for them shout outs. Shout out. Well, first and foremost, Shabbat Shalom to Sister Ava in here early. She in the chat going crazy already. Shabbat Shalom, sis. Shabbat Shalom, Brother Ben, because you're probably with your mama, so I'm pretty sure you right along with us. So Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Tess and Sister Cindy. Sister Cindy was in the chat pretty early too with Sister Ava. Shabbat Shalom, sisters.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Brother Greg. Brother Greg was the first one in the back office with me.
Shabbat Shalom, brother.
Just jamming out to some righteous music. Shabbat Shalom, brother.
Shabbat Shalom, brother and family.
Shabbat Shalom, Sister Andy.
Shabbat Shalom to you and to the family.
Shabbat Shalom, Sister Andre in the building. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Jasmine, my favorite cousin, no kind of nobody.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. And like I said, Professor S will be in here shortly. We'll get some more people that'll be trickling in. Let me take a quick moment to look at some of these comments. Sister Alba and Sister Cindy in the chat going crazy. Okay, can everybody hear me? I see the private chat. Can everybody hear me clearly?
I can hear now. I had to leave and come back in. There was something wrong with my device.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
Connection. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, and like the banner below says, if you missed the scriptural summit, the scriptural Sabbath summit, you definitely want to check that out. I try to give it a quick shout out at the beginning of every show because it's that important. If you are not observing the true biblical calendar for your observance of the Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath, as well as the feast days, the annual feast days, you highly want to check that video out. It breaks it down on a really basic level. Obviously, you can build upon it with tons of in-depth study, but for an introduction to the calendar is really good. I even have an edited version on the channel that's even shorter than the original to just kind of condense it a little bit. But it's about 5 hours of just solid, good information. You can watch it in parts, watch it all the way through, take notes. But I highly, highly, highly recommend that. If you haven't seen that, definitely go and check that one out. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Zakaria in the building. Good to have you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Glad you could make it. All right. And then also, if you like the content, man, like, share, comment, and subscribe for sure, man. Let's grow. I will say, in the past month, we've grown by 300 subscribers. So I do appreciate everybody who has been subscribing, liking, and sharing. Sister Cindy be going ham. She shared everything. She comments on everything. She's one of the biggest supporters of the platform. So thanks, sis. Shout out to you. But the bigger we get, the more information we have to share with everybody that's out there. And the more this word gets out, the more people are given that information to potentially get closer to the Most High and seek Him. So that's the ultimate goal. Now, this week, let's go ahead and get it cracking with the Torah portion. You got Leviticus 16:1 through 18:30, Ezekiel 22:1 through verse 19, as well as Hebrews chapter 9, verse 11 through 28. Thank you. And so with that being said, let me go ahead and let the Parsha in 60 seconds video play.
Shalom and welcome to Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Leviticus 16:1 through 18:30. It is called Achrei Mot, which means after the death. After Aaron's sons died, Aaron was not to come into the most holy place, or he would die. Aaron had to participate in a cleansing ritual that required bathing, dressing up, and sacrificing some animals. He would take 2 goats, one for a sin offering and one for the scapegoat to carry sin away into the wilderness. This ritual was then commanded by God to be kept once a year forever. It is called the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. Fasting and resting were an all-day event before the priest would cast off the people's sin onto the goat. God prohibited the slaughter of animals unless they were offerings, and also forbid the consuming of blood. Eating already dead meat was unclean. God prohibited sexual immorality involving family, same-sex, and animals. God banned child sacrifice to Molech. God explained that the Canaanites defiled themselves by adopting these practices, and any who did any of these things would be exiled. And that is Achrei Mot in 60 seconds.
All right. So that was Achrei Mot. The way they be saying their words is so hilarious to me.
Isn't that last week's Torah?
What?
Isn't that last week's Torah?
Oh yeah.
Wasn't that this week's Torah?
No. This one was Leviticus 19:1 through.
No, that's last week.
20.
We're 19 through 20.
Amos 9, 1 Corinthians, and 1 Peter.
Oh, so okay. That one. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. I was rushing to try to get everything done and ready after I finished the kids' Sabbath lesson with them. Okay, so that's this week's.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. So this week is Kedoshim. So let me get that one pulled up here real quick. In the meantime, how have you guys been? How was y'all week? Anybody do anything interesting or get any kind of revelations?
My week's been good. As far as revelations, I think I'm finally figuring out, as far as just by looking at the moon, if it's going to be a 29-day month or 30th day. Like I'm still testing it to see if I'm right. But so far, last 3 Shabbats, as far as I've been right. It's like, okay, this one's going to be a 29th month. It's going to be a 30th. So I just want to do maybe 1 or 2 more to see if that's, just in case there's not something. But I feel like I'm when I just look at it, I can tell it's going to be a 29 to 30 day month. So I'm still testing it.
All phrases. That's great, man. That observance and getting familiar and comfortable with the observing and keeping it in alignment with what the calendar says, instead of just solely relying on the app to guide you. Good job, man. For sure.
We're not going to have that forever. It's a good training tool, training wheels for now. But when we got to deal with this technology, we ain't going to have that app. So we got to know how to look at it from the stars.
Exactly. Eventually, you got to take them training wheels off and ride that bike. Yeah.
Well, it's a month of a bee because I see the constellations over here versus over here.
Got you. Okay, so my bad, family. Here's the correct one.
Parsha in 60 seconds. Today's portion is from Leviticus 19:1 through 20:27. It is called Kadoshim, which means holy ones. God gives commands for the Israelites to be holy, including, but not limited to, honoring parents, keeping the Sabbath, no idol, caring for the poor and stranger, don't steal, deceive, swear falsely, or defraud, work ethics, not to insult the deaf or impede the blind, judge fairly, no vengeance or grudges, to love others as oneself, observe God's law, no hybrid animals or plants, no mixed clothes, proper harvest, no consuming blood, no divination or soothsaying, no cutting the sides of the head or beard, no self-mutilation, including tattoos, no talking to ghosts or inquiring of spirits. The death penalty was established and enforced, as well as rules of exile and other penalties. If the people failed to keep God's law, they would be cut off from the promised land. The Israelites were to be holy and set apart. And that is Kadoshim in 60 seconds.
All right. Kadoshim, Kedoshim, however you want to say it.
It sounds like something from Street Fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. But if anybody wants to start and share what they got from this week, feel free. The floor is yours.
Somebody else want to go first? Go for it. But I'll go. If somebody else go ahead.
Go ahead, brother. I gotta take the call.
Okay. So just real quick, I'll just go through some notes. Most of what I took down was just like refreshers, or what most people know when you read the Bible and stuff. But it's pretty much just crazy how in Leviticus, when Yah was telling Moshe just about people sacrifice their children to Moloch, they'll be cut off. But just fast forward into today's time, there's people still doing that. And what is it called now? Healthcare, reproductive care, and all that stuff. It's like those tricky terms and deceptive things, but it's like sacrificing to Moloch is still happening. And just what else? In Amos, you say Yah say who raised up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, will close up of the breaches, and the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of Yah. So flee from sin. We were bought with a price. And be obedient, not conforming to the former lusts that we have, and becoming Kodesh in all of our behavior. And that pretty much sums up the notes I took. But yeah, it's a good read.
You be so in depth with your 4 portions. That's awesome, because a lot of people just read it to check a box. All right, I read this portion of this week. On to the next. Like it's
when I read it, it's like something pops out.
Yeah. It's really good to immerse yourself in what you're reading. That way you will not only just absorb the information, but it connects to other stuff that you've been reading in past studies. And that's when answers really start to come forth.
Yep. It just gives you a deeper connection than, when you just understand Yah more, just appreciate and, the grace that we have. It just makes you more appreciative and you just have more wisdom and confidence, because when you're reading out, you can understand. Or if somebody asks you a question, I just read that, you can help them out or talk to them about it. But yeah, I appreciate it, brother. I'll praise you to Yahweh.
Absolutely.
Something I learned is we're supposed to be meditating on Yah's word day and night. Like, I think I take that literal day, when the sun's up, and then at night when the sun's down. And just opening to Leviticus 19, there's there's lots of laws to look at. I can pick out one and ponder on it, meditate on it, which
literally
I love.
night.
I love Leviticus 19 through 20. It's like I get stuck in there a lot because I'm always reading the laws. So that was really a good read for me.
Absolutely. Meditating on his word day and night. If you're really being real, it don't give any specification of the duration of that, right? It just says day and night. So you could interpret it however you need to interpret it. You could say, man, we need to just be reading all the time, or you can say, even if we're not reading all the time, we should be having our mindset. We should be pondering on the word and what the stuff that we read earlier. You know what I mean? What does it mean? How does it apply to our lives? What can we do in our personal lives to, adjust whatever we need to adjust to be more in alignment with the scriptures? So that was a great point, Sister Tess.
Yep, it was. And then also just always, what I do when I'm reading, just always asking for his understanding and wisdom and not my own understanding. Because, sometimes we could just either misinterpret something or think we understand something because of our own understanding. But then once we let that go and let the Ruach, guide us, like, oh, wow. Once I let that go, I see it from a totally different perspective. I can clearly see the truth now versus being blocked because of our egos or our, own understanding, and we're blocking Yah working in us when, we try to interpret things with our own understanding.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I was trying to get Torah portion for next week squared away.
Multitasking. Bro.
No, multitasking, running a stream, typing in these little things, boom, boom, boom. It ain't nothing but a Sabbath day's work. Anybody else got anything for this week's Torah portion?
I just want to say I enjoyed reading it because it's just a reminder of the things that we should not do. And it was just, both chapters were just really good reminder. And then when there's a verse that talks about you should not let your cattle gender with any diverse kind. And, when you read stuff like that and you think about what people are doing now, where they have this seedless this and they have all kind of, they're trying to grow meat in the lab, they're doing all kind of weird stuff going on in the world right now, which is, of course, it's where we're at. But it's just so much, it just reminds us, take us back, for us to pay attention, to be aware of what time it is, and, to make sure that we're trying to keep ourselves clean, what we put in our bodies to make sure it's clean according to Yah's word. So I really appreciated reading these two chapters. It's just kind of a great reminder of what we should be doing right now.
And I thought of that too, Sister Alva, Alva, Andrea, sorry. I was thinking you were Alva for some reason. Andrea, I thought the exact same thing when you talk about the mixing of the seeds and stuff, like all the GMO stuff and the seedless this, even though all the health is in the seed, that's why you're trying to take out the seed, because that's where you get cured of things.
Yeah,
so I was like, I thought of that too when I read that.
I feel like, are they trying to, by also removing the seed, like if we wanted to, like take the seeds and have no seeds to plant because they're giving us all this GMO stuff. And it's kind of weird. Like, are they trying to to plant stuff to survive also? So it's just like so many ways of looking at it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sister Abba made a good point. She said, something I realized was that even though Absalom's story was clouded by the stuff he did against his father David, his anger against his half-brother for sleeping with his sister was righteous. Because we read about that. You're not supposed to do that. And it's a good point, Sister Abba, because that was one of the things that that stood out to me as I was reading, going through this in the Targum, and where it was talking about the different type of immoral or sinful relations, where it said, let's see, and if a man lieth with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall be put to death. Remember, we was reading about Judah and Tamar, and then we read about when I read from the Targum how there was like a hearing about the whole matter, and he testified and said that it wasn't her fault and that it was basically on him, and he repented from that situation. Well, that was a offense that warranted the death penalty according to the book of Leviticus. So him stepping up like that in an attempt to cover her was well noted because of the way that he had handled that situation with her and his son. So that was something that came to mind. Another thing was he talked about homosexuality. It talked about marrying a daughter and her mother at the same time. But another thing that really stood out was it says, and a man who lieth with his father's wife, whether his own mother or another wife, and who have dishonored the nakedness of his father shall be verily put to death. Both of them are guilty of death by the casting of stones, right? And at first glance, that nothing probably sticks out to you, but when you think back to why Reuben lost his birthright, remember it says he slept with his father's concubine, and we already covered and confirmed that a concubine is a wife in a previous study. So with him sleeping with his father's wife, it actually warranted the death penalty. So he wasn't killed, but he did lose his entire birthright, and he was the firstborn. So as we confirmed in that other Shabbat talk, and we talked about it, he was supposed to have all of it. He was supposed to have the priesthood. He was supposed to have the kingdom, but all of that got taken away, and he was just given like a standard slot as a child of Jacob. But all of his birthright got taken away from that offense that he did, which we identified here in Leviticus as wrong. So those are a couple of the things that stood out to me. But the biggest thing for me this week, at the end of Leviticus, did we go, or did I go a little ahead? Let me see. Nope. At the end of Leviticus chapter 20. Okay. It says, but you, the congregation of Israel, shall observe all my statutes and all my ordinances of my judgments and do them, that the land in which I am to bring you to dwell in, it may not cast you out, and walk not after the laws of the peoples whom I drive away from before you, for they have committed all these abhorrent things, and my word hath abhorred them. And we know the word of the Most High is actually the Messiah. So this was a foretelling of the Messiah hates sin. He hates it. It's disgusting to him. I know a lot of times we get caught up with how he's so merciful and forgiving when he comes down in the flesh in the New Testament, but he absolutely hates sin. And that's why when he comes back the second time, it's not with peace, it's with a sword. But this kind of stood out to me in regards to yet another connection to the Messiah from the Old Testament about actually what he actually likes or dislikes. And he abhors, and I looked up the word abhor. It means to detest, there's a couple other words too. But basically hate was one of them as well. It's something that's really disgusting. So that's what I got from this week. Next week's Torah portion is Leviticus chapter 21, verse 1 through chapter 24, verse 23, Ezekiel chapter 44, verse 15 through 31, and 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. And I'll leave that up for a little bit so you guys can take screenshots, write it down, whatever the case may be. Okay. All right, so let's get that on out of here. All right. So real quick, I would say a show of hands, but nobody has the camera on. But let me get an eye if you believe that you are an Israelite. I'm wearing this shirt today, there's a reason why I'm wearing this shirt today. And it's not just because I just grabbed it randomly. There was a purpose behind it. So let me get an eye if you believe you're an Israelite.
Aye.
Okay, Brother Greg. Nobody else believes they're Israelite? When I say Israelite, I don't mean Hebrew Israelite. I mean just the Israelite.
Scattered across the globe.
Nobody else? I mean, it's okay. I'm not trying to pressure you into it, but I want to make sure the silence is, I'm not an Israelite, I'm just not trying to participate. I need everybody to participate.
I'm honestly not sure. It's like I hope I'm grafted in, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Sister Ava says grafted in. She said I grafted in. Okay, Sister Ava. Well, Sister Tex, at the end of this lesson today, you should have that answer to that question.
Awesome.
Everybody should.
Aye.
There we go, Sister Andy. Let's go. All right. So the topic of the topic for this week is true Israel. True Israel. I've covered this topic in the past, not for Shabbat talk, just when I was doing independent studies. I covered it several times. I made tons of posts about it. This was one of the defining factors that kind of like broke me away from the original, like the traditional Hebrew Israelite religion. There was a lot of red flags that was at play, but this was one of the defining factors for me as I began to like really study the scriptures without like listening to what people were saying or any type of pastors, preacher, elder, whatever. I was just studying, and the Most High was revealing a lot of stuff to me. And I realized that wasn't in agreement with a lot of what they were saying and teaching. So not saying all Hebrew Israelites have the same view. It's just the people that I was dealing with at the time. And so I always go with whatever the scriptures say, right? I take my own personal opinion out of the matter, and whatever the scriptures say, that's what I roll with. So we are going to get into the scriptures and see what they actually have to say about what it is to be an Israelite. I know some people think, it's one group of people or another group of people, or sometimes people think it's a certain set of beliefs and stuff like that. So we're just going to get some clarification. Shabbat Shalom, everybody with the Y team. I see Sister Marquita, Sister Kaya, Brother Sims, Chief Sims in the building. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom to my beautiful wife, Ebony. Thanks for tuning in with us. Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. All right, let's get on into it. So let me share it, bring it on up. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So forgive me if there's any typos. I literally was trying to get this ready, and I like made it by the hair of my chinny chin chin, so I was rushing. But anyways, so I put many in the Hebrew Israelite religion, not to be insulting, just being 100, right? I've been told or taught that only blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, or any combination of melanated people are the only true Israelites or the lost sheep. This is actually not the case. The original 12 tribes were in fact Negro, but since then the bloodlines have been mixed, diluted, tainted, to the point where nearly no one can truly tell or prove if they are not. That's why I said nearly, because there are groups of people who can trace their lineage back. There were some tribes in Africa that were actually established from the Israelites or the Jews who migrated from, or not migrated, fled from Jerusalem in 70 AD and ended up settling in different parts of northeastern Africa, and then some spread across south and west to western and southern parts of Africa as well. But in those cases, they kept records that the entire tribe knew who they were, and they can trace their lineage back to 70 AD. But that is a small percentage when you look at the grand scheme of things in terms of the modern day melanated communities, right? So I'll quickly explain. Lineage in the Hebrew culture passes from father to son, right? If you didn't know that, whenever you read in the scriptures, I would have put that in here, but for time purposes, it would have just made it too long. But anytime you see like the birth of a king or anything like that, it'll tell you that he came from his father. It'll say such and such, the father of such and such, who was the father of such and such, and it's going down the line. It's all about the male lineage, right? Or it'll say that such and such was the son of such and such, or such and such begat such and such, right? And it all goes down the line on the male line. Now, it does mention women here and there, especially if that individual had more than one wife or more wives and concubines or different things like that. And it needs to identify which woman the children were born from, and then it'll mention it. Or if the woman was very significant in regards to their relationship to the man, then it'll also list them as well. There's several reasons why women are listed, but even in the listing of the women, it clearly states that the lineage still passes from father to son. But so you are what your father was, or you are what your father is. So with that said, think how Israel mixed bloodlines by intermarrying with other nations throughout history. Think about how when the slaves were sold in Africa and scattered, how many of the women were raped by the white European non-Israelite slave masters. You know, these are things that often aren't mentioned when people are talking about only the blacks or the Native Americans are Israelites and everybody else are Gentiles, right? Their children no longer Israelites by their Gentile fathers, even though they may still be dark skinned or even slightly lighter due to the mix, right? How many people know somebody who has a white mom and a black dad, and they're light skinned, but they still can be darker than, you know, a pure white mom, white dad. But the slave intermarried with slaves, and the breeding would keep the hue or skin color dark. So a Gentile slave couldn't be told apart from an Israelite slave. Not to mention, fast forwarding to today's time, with the interracial marriages, dating and whoring, just being real, keeping it real, and all sorts of mixing. So a Negro today couldn't possibly know for sure if they are Israel, because they would have to prove they had a pure blood Israelite male in every, emphasis on every, generation of their family, dating back all the way to the 12 tribes prior to 70 AD. Okay. You would have to literally prove it. And the reason why you have to prove it in today's time is because they had to prove it in the Bible. If you go to the book of Numbers, chapters 1 and chapter 3 of the book of Numbers, they had census. And the census of Israel, it was every male of of fighting age and up had to come, and they literally had to register. And the only way you could register and claim a specific tribe from a specific household, you had to annotate who your father was and what your family lineage was, right? So if you have a Gentile male in any branch of your family tree, it exits it out. It exits it out. So here's a quick depiction of what I was saying in visual form, because I know people are visual learners. Not everybody can get it by reading it. So you have an Israelite man, an Israelite woman. They have a child. The child will be Israelite because the father is Israelite. Okay, simple enough. You have an Israelite male and a Gentile woman, even though both are the same color or roughly the same color, the child will still be Israelite because of the father, right? They come over here. You have a Gentile man and an Israelite woman. The child will be Gentile, even if the Gentile has a darker skin color. Here's the big problem with a lot of these doctrines that are out here to try to bang on Esau and call all white people wicked and that they can't be Israel. When we say Gentile, people assume that the Gentiles during the biblical time let me let everybody in here. Hold on 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Put it back up. All right, yeah, so the problem is they assume that all the Gentiles during the Bible time were Caucasians. During the biblical time, everybody looked the same. They didn't come from the same place, but they were dark skinned. Right? So a Gentile would look, and here's the proof of this. When the Messiah was born, right, and his mother and his father took him to flee, where did they go? Anybody? Where did they flee to?
Egypt.
Egypt. They fled to Egypt so that they could blend in with the Egyptians, because they look similar to the Egyptians. Egyptians were Gentiles. They were not Israelites, right? So a dark-skinned Gentile during this time and a dark-skinned Israelite woman would have had a dark-skinned Gentile child just because the father was Gentile. You are who your father is. So this whole just identifying who Israel is based on skin color and amount of melanation in your skin, that's not a good factor to decide who's Israel and who's not Israel, okay? It's the same, no matter how you look at it. Now, even if he was light-skinned, let's just call this a Caucasian man, and you have a dark-skinned Israelite woman, and then a mixed skin, the child will still be Gentile because of the father. No matter how you slice it, it's all comes from who the father is. So now that we got the understanding, let's see how the Old Testament and the other nations or Gentiles, strangers or sojourners, all synonymous, were allowed to be Israelites as long as they kept the Passover and followed Torah and feared the Most High. Now, we touched on some of these scriptures last week, and I told you guys that last week's understanding of what a precept is going to carry us into this week, right? Do a quick recap. We know a precept is a law, statute, commandment, ordinance, or order, right? That is backed up by another law, statute, commandment, ordinance, or order, right? Not just two random verses that goes together. And we use a few of these scriptures to prove what a precept was as an example in the scripture. So going back, Exodus 12:48-49, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to the Most High, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, or an Israelite, right? And unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Remember, strangers, Gentiles, sojourners, other nations, all of those are synonymous. So this Exodus 12 is saying a stranger If they want to sojourn, sojourn means to dwell with, to live amongst, right? So if they want to sojourn, they have to be circumcised. Once they become circumcised, and the Strong's Concordance, and we'll get to that, but they become a proselyte. A proselyte is a convert, someone who is trying to learn your ways, who is trying to subject themselves to your tutelage, become a student so you can teach them. They want to learn. They want to integrate, right? So they become circumcised. They become proselytes. They can now keep the Passover, okay? And then it says, he shall be one that is born in the land. And then you have one law. What's the law? The Torah, right? So the Torah shall apply to both the stranger and the homeborn, okay? Numbers 9:14. Here's an example of a precept, because this right here is clearly a precept. It's a law, statute, or commandment, or ordinance, or order directly from the Most High via the messenger who is Moses, right? But here it is again in Numbers. And if a stranger, again, shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Most High, according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. Ye shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. So this is literally echoing and saying the exact same thing that we just said here, right? Except it adds on to it. Now it's not just law, it's ordinances, right? Leviticus 19:33-34, saying the same thing. And if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, you shall not vex him. You shall not treat him badly. Okay. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you. And thou shalt love him as thyself. For ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Most High your Elohim. So, same thing, but it's adding on again. So it's telling us we shall not vex him. And it's saying that we shall love him as thyself. So it continues to build upon, right? Precept upon precept, right? Line upon line, here a little, there a little. The here a little, there a little. Okay, this was in Exodus, but the there a little is in Numbers. And the there a little is in Leviticus, right? Let's go to Isaiah 14:1. It says, for the Most High will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. Okay, he's going to choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. So it's saying that the strangers are going to cleave to the house of Jacob. Who is Jacob? Israel. So this is also saying that the strangers will be amongst the Israelites. Let's look at Isaiah 56. It says, thus saith the Most High, keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the son of the man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to the Most High speak, saying, the Most High hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. So first thing, obviously, stranger here, you got a stranger. Then it says that hath joined himself to the Most High. We just read in Isaiah that it says the strangers have joined themselves to the house of Jacob, or the house of Israel. But not only that, they have joined themselves to the Most High. What does it mean to join yourself to the Most High? Right? To come into covenant with him, to come into obedience to him, to worship him, to love him, to honor him. Basically, to do exactly what the Israelites originally were doing, or supposed to do, right? So they joined him. He said, speak, saying, the Most High hath utterly separated me from his people. Most High said, no, they can't. They won't be able to say that. Neither let the son of the stranger say that, right? Because they haven't been utterly separated from the Most High, which is this represents this me, or from his people, represents Israel. For thus saith the Most High unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths and choose the things that please me and take hold of my covenant, even unto them will I give in mine house and within my walls a place and a name better than the sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Also, the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Most High, again, and it gives context as to what does this mean right here. It says to serve him and to love the name of the Most High, to be his servants, everyone that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it and taketh hold of my covenant. So this is what it means to join to him. So any sons of the stranger that do all of these things, what does he say? Even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon my altar, for mine house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. The Most High Elohim, which gathered the outcasts of Israel, saith, yet will I gather others to him beside those that are gathered unto him. So, again, any stranger or the son of the stranger who do all of these things, right, who join themselves to the Most High, he will bring you to his holy mountain. He will make you joyful in his house of prayer. Your offerings and sacrifices will be accepted, right? And then he says his house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. Now, does this sound like all the white people are going to have to kiss boots and become slaves? And if you white or Caucasian or you're not black, Hispanic or Native American, and you can't, none of the stuff to the Bible, is for you. I'm not reading that. I'm just reading directly from the scripture, right? We clearly see here through these precepts, strangers being brought into the congregation as one born in the land, i.e., for example, an Israelite, is treated no differently and completely and utterly as a native, right? So let's look at Ezekiel 22, verses 6 through 16. Behold, the princes of Israel, everyone were in thee to their power to shed blood. In thee have they set light by father and mother. In the midst of thee have they dealt by oppression with the stranger. See that stranger again. In thee have they vexed the fatherless and the widow. So just a heads up, everything that's highlighted in red is a sin that's being committed by the princes of Israel. This is a warning in the book of Ezekiel to kind of give you guys some context, right? And by oppression with the stranger, and they vexed the fatherless and the widow. Thou hast despised mine holy things and hast profaned my Sabbaths. In thee are men that carry tails to shed blood, and in thee they eat upon the mountains. In the midst of thee they commit lewdness. In thee have they discovered their father's nakedness. In thee have they humbled her that was set apart for pollution. And one hath committed abomination with his neighbor's wife, and another hath lewdly defiled his daughter-in-law, and another in thee hath humbled his sister, his father's daughter. In thee have they taken gifts to shed blood. Thou hast taken usury and increase, and thou hast greedily gained of thy neighbors by extortion, and has begotten me, saith the Most High Elohim. Behold, therefore I have smitten mine hand at thy dishonest gain which thou hast made, and at thy blood which hath been in the midst of thee. Can thine heart endure, or can thine hands be strong in the days that I shall deal with thee? I, the Most High, have spoken it and will do it. So these people are doing all of these sinful things, right? But one of the things that's in these sinful things is to oppress the stranger. Why would the oppression of the stranger be listed with all of these really bad things if the strangers had no significance or importance? You see the dealing of a stranger, but you also see the dealing of Israelites, right? Dealing with, discovered their father's nakedness, defiled the daughter-in-law, humbled his sister, extorted thy neighbor, you know what I'm saying? There's all of these things. But why are they listed? Because they're significant, or else they wouldn't be listed, right? It says, and I will scatter thee among the heathen and disperse thee in the countries, and will consume thy filthiness out of thee, and thou shalt take thine inheritance in thyself in the sight of the heathen, and thou shalt know that I am the Most High. Now, notice the word heathen here. We are going to get into that word. We're going to get into that word because a lot of times people misconstrue the word heathen and then the word stranger or Gentile. They put them all in the same category. There is a clear distinction between heathen and a stranger or a Gentile or somebody of another nation, right? You can see it actually here because they mentioned heathen in verse 15, but it mentioned stranger specifically in verse 7, right? So if they were the same thing, it would have just said heathen instead of stranger. So we see here a list of significant sins that Israel has committed to include oppressing the stranger, further solidifying the importance of their treatment because the Most High provides his punishment for all of their lawlessness. And that's what these few verses are talking about. So before I jump down to the next verse in Ezekiel, let me quickly give a little backstory. Give you guys a quick little backstory. So I was having a conversation with a brother. We agreed with certain aspects of the Bible, not everything. But one thing we disagreed on was the topic of today, right? Who's Israel? And so we had several conversations of back and forth. And when I would bring forth the scriptures, right? Some of the scriptures that you guys see up here, some other scriptures that I have found over the years, when I would present it to him, like, hey, well, why does the Bible and these other scripts and texts say this if strangers are not Israelites or strangers aren't accepted as Israel? And so he went to Second Esdras and pulled out a scripture, and he was like standing on that scripture, right? He wouldn't move. Sorry, one second. And so I was like, all right, you're going to one scripture, and you're trying to combat all of this plethora of scriptures that I've provided with this one scripture. And we'll cover not next week, but the week after that, we'll get into what me and Professor S always refer to as the totality of scripture. If you are reading one specific scripture and you believe that what it's saying is the truth, but there's a large amount of scripture that contradicts that, then you probably should go with the large amount of scripture and then re-investigate why you believe that one isolated scripture is saying what it's saying. Because scripture doesn't contradict itself, it has to agree. And so you go with the totality of scripture because that gives you the best chance or the best odds of being in the correct context of what the Bible is saying, right? So I said, okay, well, can you explain further what's your understanding? Because this one scripture, and I can tell you what this one scripture means, but obviously we clearly disagree. So just give me your point of view. And so he said, all right, let me give you an example. Let me break it down for you. He said, if imagine us, being back in our childhood days, you used to go over your friend's house and eat dinner and stuff like that. So we're back in our childhood. You come over and you have dinner with me and my family. I said, okay, cool. And so when you're over with us, you're eating with us, you're eating the same meal as us. My mom has prepared a nice meal for everybody. We're treating you like your family. You know what I mean? We're including you in everything. We're not excluding you about anything. We're treating you with dignity, with honor, and with respect. I said, okay. He said, because, that's what the scriptures tell us to do to the strangers. I said, I see where you're going with it, but continue. He says, just because we treat you with respect doesn't mean that you're a part of the family. For example, if my mom passes away, whatever is in her will is going to be given to me and my brothers and sisters, not to you. You're not a part of the family. So in that situation, you wouldn't be given an inheritance with us. So even though you're with us, you're dwelling with us, right? You're over my house eating dinner. That means that you're still separate, right? And I said, well, I get that, I get what you're saying. So I asked him, I said, so are you saying that all of the information that I provided is invalid because there's no inheritance rights? And he's like, yeah, exactly. We treat the strangers good. We treat them with respect. We treat them, they can keep the feast with us and all of this stuff, but they don't have inheritance rights. And I said, okay. Well, let's go to the book of Ezekiel and let's see what the Bible has to say about that. And then, as you guys are going to read in a short moment, there was a lot of quietness after we went to the scriptures. So Ezekiel chapter 47. All right, now this is instruction to Ezekiel about the nations of Israel from the Most High, right? And he says, so shall ye divide this land unto you. And you can confirm this by looking at verse 13 of the same chapter that is coming from the Most High. But so shall ye divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. So we're dealing with the tribes of Israel here, right? And it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you. Okay. And to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you. And they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. Right? So they do get inheritance. And they will beget children amongst the Israelites. Now, remember when the Most High gave the commandment for the children of Israel not to intermingle or mix with any of the Canaanites? Any of the ites that was in the land of Canaan? Because I know you guys have heard in some way, shape, or form during your walk, someone say, oh yeah, Israelites ain't supposed to mix with people of other nations. Well, that is true. However, that don't apply to strangers, even though strangers are technically people from other nations. Why? Because strangers are considered Israel. In verse 23 goes into even more specifics. It says, and it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall ye give him his inheritance, saith the Most High Elohim. So, we can quickly take this to the book of Revelation, where they go, well, how many gates is it? It's 12 gates, and on the top of the gate is the name of the tribe. So I don't see no Gentile gate. I don't see no stranger who sojourn gate. No, their gate is the name of the tribe that they sojourn in. And this is why I love like how the Old Testament answers questions in the New Testament, and the New Testament answers questions in the Old Testament. When you look at the New Testament, how Gentiles are grafted in, and those who practice gardening understand the process of grafting a plant, right? The arm of a plant, like it literally, when it grows, it literally fuses to the point where it's a part of the plant. Like it's literally no different from, if it grew from the plant itself, right? So when the stranger sojourns and gets circumcised and attaches themselves to the Most High, keeping the law, statutes, commandments, feasts, integrate, have children, they're literally no different from an Israelite at that point, right? And we see this, they receive inheritance, right? We're supposed to love them. They can have children amongst us. The other nations we can't have children. We were told not to mix with them. But why is it different for the stranger, right? So we can't isolate scripture because we're trying to be hateful. Or we can't isolate scripture because we're trying to exclude a certain group of people, right? We have to accept scripture. Either you're going to accept all of the Bible or you're going to accept none of the Bible. So we see here, they were also given an inheritance among the children of Israel. In the Hebraic culture, only family or blood is offered an inheritance. Inheritance is one of the most important aspects of Hebraic culture. This further proves the strangers were Israelites once they sojourned. Let's look at Malachi. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow, and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Most High of Hosts. I don't know about y'all, but based off me reading that, the context, the verbiage, sounds to me like that's a warning, right? And it's a warning against sorcerers, adulterers, false swearers, and against those who oppress the hireling, the widow, the fatherless, and turn aside, or to vex the stranger, right? We were given instructions not to vex the stranger. The Most High even warns that he will punish those who treat them bad. Now, this is something interesting that I found recently during our Torah portions, and I added this recently to this presentation. Leviticus 17:11-14. Excuse me. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. Therefore, I said unto the children of Israel, one second. Sorry about that. My kids are loud. This ain't Zoom. It don't get rid of all the background sounds. So I apologize, family. All right. So therefore I said unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourneth among you eat blood. And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, which hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with dust. For it is the life of all flesh, the blood of it is for the life thereof. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, ye shall eat the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is in the blood thereof. Whosoever eateth it shall be cut off. So who eats it is going to be cut off. Well, who's going to be cut off? It specifies specifically. No soul of you, and not even a stranger that sojourneth among you. If any of them eat the blood, they're going to be cut off. So we see here that even the consequences were the same. There was no difference in the consequences. Whether you were Israelite, whether you were a stranger, the consequences were the same. 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 32-33. Moreover, concerning the stranger, which is not of thy people Israel, but is come from a faraway country, for thy great name's sake, and thy mighty hand, and thy stretched out arm. If they come and pray in this house, I don't know about you guys, but I've also, because I've been doing this a while, or talking about this topic a while, there are those who try to make every single stranger in the Bible an Israelite. Oh, there's just the Israelite that lost his way. Or, oh, there's just the Israelite that ingrained themselves in the culture of the heathen, and so they're called strangers now. Or that's a Hellenistic Jew. Now, not every single stranger that's mentioned in the scriptures, I will admit, not every single stranger that is mentioned in the scriptures talking about the strangers that I'm talking about right now, right? But I don't have any of those scriptures in this presentation, right? And we'll identify a lot of the scriptures that I'm pulling from. But also, you can't make everybody an Israelite. Those same people try to make Ruth an Israelite. They try to make Cornelius an Israelite. They try to make Job an Israelite, because by making them an Israelite, they can throw away the argument for the contrary. If they incorporate everybody in the Bible as Israelites, then you can't really attack their doctrine. But let's continue reading. Then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name and fear thee, as doth my people Israel, and may know that this house which I have built is called by my name. Right? Remember, the Most High said that the house that he's built is a house of prayer for all people. This is building on that, right? The stranger is a part of this, and it confirms that the stranger are people that come from faraway countries. Strangers in this context aren't Israelites. Let's get another confirmation. 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 41-43. Moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people Israel, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake. For they shall hear of thy great name, and of thy strong hand, and of thy stretched out arm, when he shall come and pray toward this house. hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee, as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I have builded is called by my name. So this literally is echoing what we just read in Chronicles, 2nd Chronicles. Scripture proves strangers are foreigners from faraway lands. 2nd Chronicles again, this is chapter 30, verse 25. And all the congregation of Judah, with the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that came out of Israel, and the strangers that came out of the land of Israel, and that dwelt in Judah, rejoiced. So everybody rejoiced, the whole congregation of Israel. The congregation of Israel includes Judah, well, the whole congregation of Judah in this case. The whole congregation of Judah includes the priests, the Levites, and the strangers. Now, somebody might say, well, you see these commas in the and said that they are separate. Well, are Levites and priests not a part are not considered Israel? Everybody in Israel. It says that came out of the land of Israel. Judah is just one of the 12 tribes. And here we see again, the strangers are a part of the congregation of Israel. So here goes another visual, right? Make this a little bit bigger so get this whole picture in here. So what do we see here? Qualifications from the Israelites or the Jews. They kept the law, they kept the feast, they were treated kindly, they could marry, they had inheritance, and they were favored by the Most High. The strangers who sojourned, or the Gentiles, they kept the law, they kept the feast, treated kindly, they could marry, they had inheritance, and they were favored by the Most High. I don't see no difference. And I would have put the specific scripture, context next to each one, but for time purposes, like I said, I was rushing. But we just read about it, right? They keep the law. One law shall be to the homeborn. They can keep the Passover. They just need to be circumcised. You got to treat them kindly. This one right here, and I could read it. This says in Leviticus chapter, where is it at? Leviticus chapter 19. You're not supposed to have hatred towards your brother or your sister. You're supposed to love them and treat them kindly. So treat it kindly. They can marry. We know that the Israelites can marry, and we read in Ezekiel that they can marry. And I believe it was one of the books in the Torah that we just read earlier. We know Israel had inheritance. There's so many scriptures about inheritance. We read that about the strangers as well. And we know that the whole entire congregation of Israel is favored by the Most High. The Most High specified in the one in Isaiah 56 we read, right? So there was no difference between the two. So a stranger or a Gentile could be considered Israel if they got circumcised, kept the law, kept the feast, and believed in and worshiped the Most High. This was the criteria, right, for a stranger who sojourned. Because if you did not do this, you could not be considered Israel. If you did not meet the qualifications or meet the criteria, you could not be considered Israel. Remember I was talking about heathen? This is the difference between a stranger, a Gentile, and a heathen. Although both may come from pagan nations, right? The strangers, they kept the law, they kept the feast, they worshiped the Most High. Heathen, they did not keep the law, they did not keep the feast, they did not worship the Most High. And if you want to add an additional category on there, they don't believe in the Messiah either. That's the difference. A heathen is someone from a far away country or a non-Israelite, just like a stranger can be as well. But once the stranger sojourns and meets the criteria and takes the step, right, they get circumcised, both in the flesh and in the heart, right? We were talking about the circumcision of the heart as well a couple Shabbat talks ago. They're considered Israel. They're accepted in the congregation. But everybody else that's out there, not of Israel, that aren't keeping the laws, the feasts, they don't believe in the Most High, they worshiping other gods or no God at all, they are heathen. That's what heathen is. So some may still think, feel, believe that the stranger is a non-Gentile. Let's look at the Strong's Concordance. Strong's Concordance is number 1616. Ger or Jer, however you say it, it is a sojourner. A sojourner. Where this is coming from stranger, the word stranger. And it's from Ger or Jer, but with a U instead of an E. A sojourner, an alien, used 40 times. Aliens 11, foreigners once, immigrants, sojourners, sojourners, strangers, strangers, strangers. Look at that. Now masculine, Exodus 12:48. We covered Exodus 12:48. It's a sojourner, a proselyte. Remember I said proselyte? When you subject yourself to the tutelage, right? You want to learn. Proselytize. To be proselytized means to be made a proselyte. So when they lead themselves to the Most High, they're not just simply getting circumcised and keeping the law. They're literally every single requirement of a believer they take on amongst themselves. Let's continue. Now this says, so this is the first type of contextual sojourner, temporary dweller, newcomer, no inherited rights, right? None of the scriptures that we covered today is talking about that. Everything that we are covering, Isaiah 14:1, Numbers 9:14, 2 Chronicles 30:25, Ezekiel 22:7, Malachi 3:5, usually of this word right here, which is the Hebrew word for, we'll get to it. I have a picture on it down. But usually of this word in Israel. Talking about Isaiah 14. Right? Dwellers in Israel with certain conceded, not inherited right. Compare is to share in the Sabbath rest. Blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, he is to have like oblations or obligations with Israel. And it applies to all of these right here, including Leviticus 17:8 and all of this. These aren't highlighted, but these we covered this too, or we will cover this.
Can I ask a question real quick? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, come on.
Is Professor S still backstage, or is he in the show now? I just seen a message.
Hey, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't see you when I was in the middle of the lesson, brother. Shabbat shalom, Professor S.
All good, man. You've been doing great with it, so yeah.
My bad.
Nah, it's all good, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Shabbat shalom, man.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. You got anything you want to share?
Nah, dude, you're doing a great job. I mean, there was a few things I would have just reiterated, but you already covered it, so I mean, great.
All praises, then. All right. So let's continue going on. Charge that has been oppressed, Ezekiel 22:7, Malachi 3:5.
Oppression. Go back up. Oh, what's that say? Oppression prohibited. Interesting.
Where you say that at?
Right there at the top of the screen.
Oh, got you. Sorry, I missed that. See, I was rushing, y'all. Because Leviticus 19:33 is another one that we covered. Exodus 23:9 is another, right? Oppression prohibited. Charge that has been oppressed. Coming on down. Gathered for hard service, yet compare 2 Chronicles 30:25, often with verbal cognate. Exodus 12:48 and 49, which we covered. We covered Leviticus 17:8, 10, 12, 13. Leviticus 19:33, Numbers 9:14 again, Ezekiel 47:22 and 23. Alien, stranger, alien, sojourner, stranger. And then it says it's from the origin word of gur or gar. I don't know how you pronounce that. And then that word means to properly, it says a guest, by implication, a foreigner or alien, sojourner, stranger. So I found this short article from the Jewish Journal, right? And I'm not a proponent of always like pulling from Jewish material because it's not always accurate. But it says some interesting things I wanted to highlight. And actually, where's that? Oh, I didn't put it in here. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Let me go back to this part right here. You see why it says usually of this? I didn't get it added in there because I was rushing. But let me pull that up because that's important. That's important to mention. So let me get that pulled up real quick. Share screen. There we go. So I took that word in Hebrew and I copied and pasted it into Google and said, what is this in English? Hebrew detected, boom, boom. English, Jerem, but translation, a stranger, a foreigner. But when I also looked this, it led me to that article. That's actually how I found the article when I was looking. Here we go. So that's how I stumbled upon the article. And it says Jerem, see, Jerem is in a way a term equivalent to all of our modern immigrants, foreigners, aliens, guest workers, shelter seekers, etc. of biblical times. Pentateuch laws or the Torah laws, right, emphatically protect them. They have to be treated with justice and as equals to native citizens, Leviticus 24:22, reminding the children of Israel that they too were once Jerem or strangers in Egypt, Exodus 22:20, Exodus 23:9, right? And it says, even Abraham, who was commanded by Elohim to become the first Ole or immigrant, calls himself Jer Ves Tushav, alien resident, Genesis 23:4. And when there was a famine in the promised land, he becomes the first Yord immigrating to Egypt, Lager or Lager Sham, to sojourn there, Genesis 12:10. The Semitic root for GYR means to be or become resident, to be or to become a resident, right? One of the Shabbat talks, Professor S went into like explain like how being grafted in or, you know, sojourning amongst the Israelites is like the equivalent of getting your citizenship, right? And he really like broke down and explained, you know, when you think about modern day, you know, if you're a U.S. citizen and you move to Germany, you want to become a German citizen, there are steps and procedures that you have to take in order to get your citizenship, because you don't have any inheritance rights in Germany until you fulfill all of those obligations. Once you fulfill all of those obligations, you become a citizen of Germany. Same thing with the U.S. With all of the people who live in other nations, they come to the United States as with visas or without visas as aliens, right? And they want to become a citizen. There's steps and procedures that you have to take in order to get your citizenship. But once you get your citizenship, then you receive rights as well. So just wanted to point that out. Arabic, Jawara, be neighbor, provide asylum, treat as neighbor. Hence, the rabbinic Jir Tzedek, a convert who seeks asylum in Judaism, perhaps related to Hebrew Arabic HGR, which means to migrate, from which is derived Hagar, the name of Ishmael's mother, and the Arabic Hijra, immigration of the first Muslims of 622 CE and the start of the Muslim era. And it ends the article with, you shall have one standard for a stranger and citizen alike, Kajika Zira, for I am the Most High your Elohim. And Jonas Bar is a professor of Hebrew and Aramaic in the Department of Near Eastern Languages and Cultures at UCLA. He's the one who made this article. And this right here is the link to the article. So, well, would you look at that? The word used in Malachi 3 and 5 is the same word used in the scriptures mentioned above. And this is a list of all the scriptures, well, not all of them, but a lot of the scriptures that we mentioned, where the same word is used for stranger. And we confirm that in the Strong's Concordance with the highlight, what a lot of them never highlight. And also holds the same meaning as the Greek word for stranger, xenos, used in Matthew 25 and 43. Matthew 25, 43, I was a stranger, and ye took me not in, naked, and ye clothed me not, sick and in prison, yet ye visit me not. This was the Messiah speaking. So let's look at the Strong's again for xenos. And xenos means foreign, a foreigner, guest. Same thing there. Come down, host, strange, strange thing, stranger, strangers. So it doesn't appear a whole lot of times, but it's right there. The context of it falls into number 1, a foreigner or stranger. And then as opposed to Plato, Phaedo, and Josephus, right? But A, it says properly Matthew 25, 35, 38, and 43. Matthew 25 and 43 is what we just read. So it means a foreigner or a stranger, according to Strong's Concordance right there. Also means stranger there too. Also keep in mind that majority of these scriptures were long before the southern kingdom being scattered or any of the other captivities after the initial Egyptian captivity. Because another argument that I ran into against what I'm saying over the years has been, but it's probably because we were scattered and the people who got scattered became strangers. A lot of the scriptures that we just read was way before the splitting of Israel, when Israel split from the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom.
Yeah, because before that there was not really any captivities. You know, there was maybe a few from a couple of the tribes in their wars during the Judges and so forth, but as far as major captivities that the whole that multiple tribes went through, it wasn't like that.
No, just Egypt, and all of this happened after Egypt. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Right, you can't use that excuse. So this is just additional info. We're gonna look into Esau, right? They're gonna be banging on Esau. Deuteronomy 23, 7 and 8. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of the Most High in their third generation. Right? So it's telling us not to bang on Esau, but we banging on Esau anyway, right? Not all of us, right? So I'll put this out here because we're going to keep going. So if you go to the book of Jasher, chapter 63, verse 11, it says, and Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, heard their report, and he went forth to meet them with his army, and he fought them there in the road. So we see Zepho, this person, is an Edomite. He's the grandson of Esau. Okay. Now, backstory for this one, Zepho, which is an Edomite, so the kingdom of Edom, merged with the children of Chittim at some point after this happens, but they were together at this point. And the children of Chittim, or the kingdom of Chittim, they were getting ready to be attacked by a much bigger and larger force. It was like two different kings, and they were afraid. And so the children of Chittim came to Zepho and they asked for some help. And it's crazy that even some people who are considered heathen, legitimately considered heathen, they even heard of the stories over the years about how the Most High delivered his people. And they know that Zepho, being a descendant of Esau, still is a Hebrew. A lot of people, they like to say Esau isn't a Hebrew and only the line of Jacob, but Esau and Jacob came out of the same person. So let's read.
Would be to really break it down like that. Israelites would be Hebrew Israelites, and descendants of Esau would be Hebrew Edomites.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still Hebrews.
Yep. A lot of people don't think about that. But it says, and all the children of Chittim said unto Zepho, pray for us to the Elohim of thy ancestors. Peradventure he may deliver us from the hand of Angeas and his army, for we have heard that he is a great Elohim, and that he delivers all who trust in him. And Zepho heard their words, and Zepho sought the Most High, and he said, O Most High Elohim of Abraham and Isaac, my ancestors, this day I know that thou art a true Elohim, and all the Elohims, well, not all the gods of the nations are vain and useless, or mighty ones, right, are vain and useless. Remember now this day unto me thy covenant with Abraham our father, which our ancestors related unto us, and do graciously with me this day for the sake of Abraham and Isaac our fathers, and save me and the children of Chittim from the hand of the king of Africa who comes against us for battle. What it says, this is talking about an Edomite, Zepho, the grandson of Esau. It says, and the Most High hearkened to the voice of Zepho, and he had regard for him on account of Abraham and Isaac. And the Most High delivered Zepho and the children of Chittim from the hand of Angeas and his people. And Zepho fought Angeas, king of Africa, and all his people on that day. And the Most High gave all the people of Angeas into the hands of the children of Chittim. So, a so-called heathen, from some people's perspectives, prayed to the Most High and had his prayer answered. And the Most High moved on his behalf. Right? Now, I'm not even gonna, like me, I always keep it 100. Zepho ain't perfect. Not too long after this whole situation happens, he does some wicked stuff, right? I'm not saying he's perfect. What I'm saying is the point that I'm pulling out or bringing out is that the Most High moved on behalf of an Edomite. And then we also just read that we're not supposed to treat Edomites badly. But yet, in some circles, there's a lot of hate towards Edom. And I don't have it in here, but everywhere you read about the judgment that's going to come to Edom, that judgment always comes from the Most High. You will never read anything in the scripture where it says that you're supposed to do anything to an Edomite. But you will read where it tells you to love them. Right? So just wanted to point that out. Because a lot of time Edom and the other nations, strangers, are mixed in, right? They throw them in the same boat and bang on them all. But this is proven. So this is to bring clarity to Esau, to the Esau hatred doctrine that's out there. Esau was Jacob's brother. We are not to hate him. Also, we see in Jasher that a descendant of Esau was able to call on the Most High for deliverance and was delivered. Would the Most High deliver a so-called heathen? Many will try to use Amalek as an excuse to hate Esau, but Amalek is just one descendant of lineage of Esau, not all of Edom. Every individual is held accountable for their own actions. Was the tribes of Israel destroyed on account of what they did to their brother Joseph? Was all of Israel destroyed because of the transgression of King David or King Solomon or any individual Israelite throughout history? No. So therefore, we are to look at those occurrences on an individual basis. Same with Amalek. Right? All right. Now the scriptures that do speak of the destruction of Edom, like I said already, is talking about it's going to be done by the Most High's hands. Right? Remember, vengeance is the Most High's. Vengeance isn't ours. We can defend ourselves, but vengeance is his. Let's talk about Ruth. Remember, they try to make everybody Israelite. Well, for Ruth specifically, if you believe Ruth was an Israelite, we have a nice breakdown video on that too that we already covered, and we've already put that to bed. Ruth is definitely not an Israelite. She was a Moabite. But Ruth 1:4, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. Ruth verse 16, same chapter. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whether thou goest, I will go, and whether thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy Elohim my Elohim. So Ruth is a Moabite, right? Women of Moab. This is when she was talking to Naomi, her mother-in-law. She says, where thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Well, this is sojourning right here. That's sojourning. We're still in the Old Testament. So what are the requirements for a stranger to become an Israelite? But she had already married into the family, so legally that was already done. But here we see the mental acceptance, the spiritual acceptance, right? She's going to sojourn because she's going to go with Naomi back to Israel. But then she says, thy people will be my people. When you integrate into a people, you integrate into their culture, you integrate into their structure, their laws, their rules, right? What was the rules and laws that the people of Israel upheld? The Torah, right? And then she ends it and says, and thy Elohim, my Elohim. We read in Isaiah where it talks about the strangers who would cling to him, and it talks about taking his covenant, obeying his laws, statutes, and commandments, worshiping, praying him, and all of their sacrifice will be accepted, all of that, right? So this checks the box of the requirements for a stranger to sojourn and become Israel. Which is why Ruth, once she completed all of this and followed Naomi's instructions, she was able to marry again back into Israel to Boaz. Here we see Ruth, the Gentile, join Israel by following Naomi after the death of her husband, accepted the customs of Israel as well as their Elohim, who went on to eventually marry Boaz, a man of the tribe of Judah. Rahab. Read Joshua chapter 2, all of it. It's all of it. But we're going to focus on chapter 6, verse 21 through 25. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city. Because chapter 2 just tells you how Rahab hid the two messengers that were spying out the city of Jericho to come up with a battle plan, right? She hid them, and they made a promise that since she hid them and got them out safely, that when they came to destroy the city, that they would spare her and her household, right? So here's that happening. Both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and donkey with the edge of the sword. But Joshua had said to the two men who had spied out the country, go into the harlot's house. The harlot was Rahab, okay? And from there bring out the woman and all that she has, as you swore to her. And the young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab, her father, her mother, her brothers, and all that she had. So they brought out all her relatives and left them outside the camp of Israel. But they burned the city and all that was in it with fire. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and iron they put in the treasury of the house of the Most High. And Joshua spared Rahab the harlot, her father's household, and all that she had. All that she had was all of her relatives. Okay? So she dwells in Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent out, or sent to spy out Jericho. Here's the piece right there. So she dwells in Israel to this day. That's sojourning. And we already know the criteria. They would have had to integrate. And we know that they did, because we're going to confirm later, Rahab has a very significant piece in history. James chapter 2, verse 21 through 26. She's also mentioned here. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac his son up on the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works was faith made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled which saith, Abraham believed Elohim, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness. Ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. Likewise, also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers, and had sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Rahab is mentioned in the likes of Abraham. That's crazy. Remember, she was a harlot. There you go, Abraham right here.
And here's the thing. I'm trying to say that, you can't really make Rahab an Israelite because she was living in Jericho, right? She hadn't even been in Egypt. They come conquering the place, and there's no way you can make Rahab an Israelite. So just something that
Absolutely. Anybody got any questions, concerns, things they want to bring up? Anything interesting that they heard so far? Okay,
Hey, can you just kind of just sum it up real quick, like do a synopsis, so I can have a place in my head what this is good for.
A synopsis of this whole lesson, or a synopsis of the point about Rahab?
The lesson.
The lesson is, if you, regardless of your race, color, skin color, creed, if you keep the Torah, believe in the Most High, believe in the Messiah, right, then you are considered Israel. Regardless of if you're looking at Old Testament, regardless if you're looking at New Testament, regardless of who taught you, regardless of whatever you may have heard. That's why my first question when we first started here was, I want to hear who thinks that they're Israelite. That's why I wore this shirt tonight. So if you believe in the Most High, you keep the Torah, the Messiah, keep these feasts, keeping the Sabbath, all of these things, you're Israel. No matter if you Asian, it don't matter if you Russian, it don't matter if you're Black, Indian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, Arabic, whatever the case may be, it don't matter. Because if you're talking about bloodline Israelites, most of us can't prove that. Most of us can't go past our grandfather or our great-grandfather or our great-great-great-grandfather. Some can, but not everybody.
If you're eating blood and disregarding the commandments, then what happens? You're cut off, right? So,
right, over the years,
any branch can be cut off from the olive tree, whether natural or grafted in. So, we should all recognize the sharpness of Elohim in that regard.
Yep. That's the synopsis in a quick little thing. I just like to be thorough. Okay. All right, jump back on here. So here we see Rahab, a Gentile, a stranger, right, who sojourned, rewarded for helping two Israelite scouts or messengers flee from certain death by hiding them. She and her family was allowed to sojourn in Israel unto this day. Now we both see Ruth and Rahab in the Messiah's lineage, Matthew chapter 1, verse 5. And Salmon begat Booz of Rahab, and Booz begat Obed of Ruth, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David. King David going all the way down, the Messiah came from that. Right? Rahab and Rahab are the same. You can Google it, you can look it up. They're literally the same.
but they married Israelite men, right?
Correct.
So that's what made them Israelite.
No. That didn't make them Israelite because of the men that they married. They were Israelites because they became strangers who sojourned, which is why they were allowed to marry into the Israelite.
Yeah, because you shouldn't. They shouldn't have been. You shouldn't have been able to marry them if they had not been sojourning and keeping the commandments.
Correct. And we're going to see an example of the difference because, yeah, we'll see. Also in the book of First Chronicles, chapters 1 and 2 lists the descendants of Adam all the way down the line. Chapter 2 in particular goes specifically into Israel's lineage from Jacob to his 12 sons, their sons, and so on and so forth. But at the very end of chapter 2, you see in the families of the scribes, which dwelt at Jabaz, the Tirathites, the Shimeathites, the Suchathites. These are the Kenites that came from Hemath, the father of the house of Rechab, or Rechab. Right? Ooh, excuse me. The Kenites were a people that developed, they originally started as nomads, but eventually became sojourners in Israel. And we know that they came as sojourners in Israel because the father of the house of Rahab, remember Rahab in her father's house, everything that she had, including all of her relatives, established the father's, because she was a woman still, so it was about the father's household. But all of them were able to become sojourners in Israel, including Kenite people. Now, at first glance, you wouldn't think any of this I know, but because I have done extensive research into Israel's lineage and what it means to become an Israelite, I was able to identify a few astonishing clues, which made a connection to a past study. And that's what I was just saying. Rahab is a band of riders or a clan of nomads, but the Kenites are people that were sojourners. In fact, Midian, or Jethro, the father of Zipporah, the wife of Moses, was in fact of the Kenite people, or before the Kenite. We even see both Ruth and Rahab in the Messiah's lineage. Now, why would the Most High allow heathen in such a holy lineage if they were considered heathen? Zipporah in the book of Jasher, chapter 72, verse 36 to 37. And they rose up and blew the trumpets and called out before him and said, "May the king live, may the king live." And all the people and nobles swore unto him to give him for a wife Adoniah, the queen, the Cushite wife of Kekianis, and they made Moses king over them on that day. So this right here is giving you some backstory. We talk Zipporah is the topic, right? We're going to get to Zipporah, but during this time period, Moses actually, before he, went to the burning bush and was sent on a mission to go and get the Israelites out of Egypt, he actually became the king of Cush for a period of time, right? And this is where he became the king of Cush. And they wanted to give him, because the custom was when a new king came in and replaced the old king or killed the old king, that the king's wife would be given to the wife of the new king. So they wanted to give him for a wife Adoniah, the queen, who's the wife of Kekianis. But let's continue reading. And it says, "And Moses reigned over the children of Cush on that day in the place of Kekianis, king of Cush. And they placed the royal crown upon his head, and they gave him," not he took, they gave him for a wife Adoniah, the Cushite queen, wife of Kekianis. Remember, if Adoniah is the Cushite queen, she's a Cushite woman. She's not an Israelite, right? So they gave her to Moses. But let's read. "And Moses feared the Most High Elohim of his fathers, so that he came not to her, nor did he turn his eyes to her. For Moses remembered how Abraham had made his servant Eliezer swear, saying unto him, Thou shalt not take a woman from the daughters of Canaan for my son Isaac. Also, what Isaac did when Jacob had fled from his brother, when he commanded him, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, nor make alliance with any of the children of Ham. For the Most High, our Elohim, gave Ham, the son of Noah, and his children and all his seed as slaves to the children of Shem and to the children of Japheth, and unto their seed after them, for slaves forever. Therefore Moses turned not his heart nor his eyes to the wife of Kekianus all the days that he reigned over Cush. And Moses feared the Most High his Elohim all his life. And Moses walked before the Most High in truth with all his heart and soul. He turned not from the right way all the days of his life. He declined not from the way either to the right or to the left, in which Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had walked. So here's the difference. Here's the difference. Adoniah is a Cushite. She's a daughter of Canaan, right? She's a heathen. She's considered a heathen. Moses feared the Most High. He didn't even touch her. He didn't look at her. He didn't acknowledge her as a wife or anything. He completely disregarded her. If it was up to him, he wouldn't have taken her as a wife. And you don't read, it says he took her as a wife. It says that they gave him, right? It was a Cushite tradition to give the wife of the queen to the new king. But he didn't look at her because of what was already stated. Right. Now check this out. Here comes where Zipporah comes in. So we fast forward to chapter 78 because we was just in chapter 72? Yeah, 72. Now fast forward to chapter 78. In those days, Moses, the son of Amram, in Midian, took Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, or Jethro, depending on the name you want to use, Reuel the Midianite, for a wife. And Zipporah walked in the ways of the daughters of Jacob. She was nothing short of the righteousness of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Also, we see Moses' wife Zipporah, a Gentile by common standards, being brought into the congregation. Why? Because she was righteous and willing to serve the Most High as opposed to the Cushite wife. They gave him who was wicked and whom Moses did not touch. Both were Gentiles by common standards, but only one was selected because Moses knew the requirements of strangers, as mentioned above, and knew that Zipporah was not an Israelite by blood, but did come from a people who kept the Torah.
And then later, I don't know if you're going to mention this, but then later Moses married a Cushite woman.
He did. No, I didn't put that on here.
Yeah. He later did, because that woman was willing to become a proselyte. She was willing to serve the Most High. She did things the way she was supposed to. And then even Aaron and Miriam got punished for talking badly about Moses for it.
Good point. I'm gonna have to add that in here. And then Cornelius, right? We ain't gonna go through all of Acts chapter 10, but Acts chapter 10, verse 1 and 2. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. So he was Italian. He wasn't an Israelite. He was Italian. Or he was Roman, right? A devout man and one that feared Elohim with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to Elohim always. All right, so that just set the precedent. He isn't an Israelite. However, he is doing the things that we are supposed to do. Acts chapter 10, verse 28, fast forwarding. And he said unto them, this is Peter speaking to Cornelius, okay? And he said unto them, ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But Elohim hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Right? So this is Peter telling Cornelius and his entourage that it was originally unlawful for a Jew.
Well, interestingly enough, here it's unlawful how? By whose laws? See, you've got different laws being brought up here as well, because you had the traditions of the elders that most of the Jews followed that Messiah taught against, right? So I would personally speculate that this unlawful thing right here is actually just a transgression of the traditions of the elders rather than the actual Torah.
Get that point. Also keep in mind too, whenever a stranger would sojourn, right? The stranger had to take the initiative to become a proselyte. Mm-hmm. Israelites wasn't out here looking for people. It's not like on the flip side, with the New Testament, where we're commanded to go out into all nations, right, and make disciples. This was backup. This was, if you look back at the sojourning aspect, it was the stranger who took the initiative and took the steps to become. So during those times, an Israelite wasn't trying to come unto another nation and make them become Israel. The strangers would come into Israel, sojourn and dwell, and then make the decision to become Israel. So in this situation, Peter came unto them. So, I mean, either way, whether it's unlawful according to the elders or unlawful according to the Torah, either way, Peter acknowledged that it wasn't good. But that was a great point. I didn't even think of it like that. But yeah. And then Acts chapter 10, verses 44 through 48, while Peter yet spoke these words, this is when he was preaching the gospel to them. The Holy Ghost, or the Ruach HaKodesh, fell on all of them which heard the word, and they of the circumcision which believed were astonished, as many as came with Peter, because that on the Gentiles also was poured out the gift of the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost. All right. For they heard them speak with tongues and magnify Elohim. Then answered Peter, can any man forbid water that these should not be baptized, which have received the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost as well as we? And he commanded them to be baptized in the name of the Most High. Then prayed they him to tarry certain days. So the Holy Spirit, after he preached the gospel, the Holy Spirit came on everybody that was there, to include the Gentiles. Because it was Peter and the people that came with him, and those were Jews. And then it was Cornelius and the people that were there with him, and those were Gentiles. And the Holy Spirit came down on everybody. So that's why they said, well, why can't we baptize them? And then he commanded them to be baptized. All right. So that was that part. And that was in chapter 10, Acts chapter 10, the whole chapter. I highly recommend you read it if you want to know about the grafting in. Because Acts chapter 10 was a significant point in the whole, who's an Israelite, what makes Israel, right? That was a pivotal point there. So the grafting in is, you got to read the whole chapter.
Wait, before you go on, okay, because scroll up, please. And yet Peter was talking. Keep going. Like to the top of that section.
How far do you want me to go?
Oh, maybe it froze. It say and while Peter was talking to them or something like that.
It's right here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're talking about how Gentiles, sojourners, at some point
you broke up.
Can mean the same thing as long. Okay, how about now?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm still breaking.
Yeah.
Am I still breaking up?
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about how Gentiles and sojourners can mean the same thing as long as the Gentile makes a decision in his actions and heart to keep the Torah. That's accurate, right? Then that Gentile becomes a sojourner.
No. So that was the case for sojourners, right? Strangers who sojourn in the Old Testament. Here was a pivotal moment because this was the grafting in of Gentiles, because the Gentiles wouldn't have had they wouldn't have been brought up in the Torah, but they had a yearning. What was that?
Nope, go ahead.
They had a yearning for being set apart. Cornelius was the prime example of that. Right. So now, because before there was a criteria. Now there's still a criteria, but the Torah wasn't like an immediate requirement. You had to be willing, but you didn't have to like automatically like do it. In the Old Testament, it was like, yo, if you want to be Israel, you gotta get circumcised, you gotta do all of these things, and now you can be considered Israel. For the Gentiles, you went from heathen to having it on your heart to seek out Messiah, and that's where Messiah is like so pivotal, because having faith in Messiah, like after he, like that's why he said while Peter yet spoke these words, he had just preached the gospel to all of the Gentiles that were present, and by their belief on Messiah and their, like you said, their agreement in their heart, was the Holy Spirit poured down on everybody that was there. And as a witness to that, that's why Peter said, well, why shouldn't we be able to baptize them? And that's why he commanded them to be baptized. So there's similarities between a stranger in the Old Testament and a Gentile in the New Testament, right? And then there's still similarities between, becoming Israel in the Old Testament and with the process of becoming Israel in the New Testament. But there's just some key differences between the time periods and what was required.
So we can't say that Cornelius, being a righteous man, whatever, would have kept the Torah or been trying to.
I mean, he very well could have. It doesn't state that. All we know for sure from what the scripture says, it says specifically, it says he was a devout man, one that feared the Most High with all his house, which gave much alms to the people, and he prayed to the Most High always.
Okay.
But we know that this jump started the grafting in, the ministry for the Gentiles, right? In which Paul took on as his own personal mission to take on. And we know that the people who Paul was converting, they didn't have a background in Torah. And that's why Paul was so passionate about everything, which is why he even rebuked Peter at one point in time for the way Peter was acting around the Gentiles. So Cornelius could have been trying to keep the Torah or keeping the Torah, but it's not clear.
I don't know if I cut out. Did you hear what I said?
No, what'd you say?
Okay. I was saying that's why, verses like this, Christianity would say, this is one of the reasons why we don't have to keep the Torah today.
Well, the whole point of Paul's ministry is dealing with the Gentiles, and the way he goes about his ministry with the Gentiles is the Gentiles do have to keep the Torah.
Now, I would put it this way, right? So, in the so-called Old Testament, in order to receive forgiveness, you had a certain requirements that you had to do, right? You had to bring the animals to the priests, and they had to kill them, all that, right? And that's how you received the forgiveness. Of course, you had to repent too, you know what I'm saying? But you had these requirements that you had to do, these actions that you had to take, right? In the so-called New Testament, you get the grace in advance, and then you go on and take the actions, right? Whereas before you had to take actions in order to receive grace. Now you receive grace so that you can take action, right? Does that make sense?
But we covered that in great detail. Like, I get how somebody, like she said, I get how somebody could read that one isolated verse or isolated few verses and say, see, this is why we don't have to, but then they're just ignoring all the rest of Paul's epistles and everything else that was established later in the New Testament. Mm-hmm. So that's just ignoring what the Bible says. And like I said earlier, you got to accept all of the Bible or none of it. But yeah, so that's just kind of showing the compare and contrast, like I said, between who the strangers are, who the Gentiles are, and the processes for becoming Israel in the Old Testament and also becoming Israel in the New Testament. That's why I say, like, when we hear Old Testament, New Testament, it's really just one testament. We always separate the two, but they're all together. And just like there was grafting in the new side of it, right? There was always space and opportunity for people who were not native-born Israelites to become Israel. Acts chapter 17, verse 26. And hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. Matthew 3 and 9. And think not to say within yourselves, this is Messiah speaking, we have Abraham our father, for I say unto you that Elohim is able of these stones to raise up children unto Abraham. The reason why I got these on here, right, is because too much emphasis is being made on a physical bloodline, on a physical lineage that a lot of us can't even prove. And then the emphasis is made on the bloodline, or the emphasis is made on whatever specific tribe you're from. And it's too much focus on that as opposed to the stuff that matters. Because I asked, okay, let's just say you're the tribe of Judah, or you're the tribe of Levi, or you're the tribe of Benjamin, whatever. Now what? What are you doing? What are you going to do? Does that change what you're supposed to do? Are you not still supposed to keep the law, statutes, and commandments? Believe on Messiah? Preach the gospel? Make disciples? Bring people closer to the Most High? But you spending most of your time reading and studying all of these historical records to try to prove that black people are Israel. You spending all of this time trying to wake up your people only focused on black people or melanated people. You spending all your time talking about what tribe you from, or trying to find out and locate what tribe. All of that time and effort and energy could be put elsewhere. I'm not saying not knowing who you are. I get the yearning of wanting to know who you are, but even if you are of a specific tribe, you still have to do what you need to do. So, another thing I wanted to point out was who is Moses addressing in Deuteronomy 28? Because a lot of these people focus on Deuteronomy 28 as like the deciding factor of why certain groups of people and certain races of people are set apart from other races of people in terms of who's Israel and who's not, right? Remember, the whole congregation was addressed in Deuteronomy 28. What made up the whole congregation of Israel? The native-born Israelites and the sojourning Israelites who were present. So this message or instruction was given to everyone. Right? Israel's warning, Deuteronomy 28:15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Most High thy Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Right? And then the curses are obviously all the way to the end of the chapter. And then, verse 1 through 14 is talking about the blessings. But we have the blessings and we have the curses, right? But the blessings and the curses was given to the entire congregation of Israel. The entire congregation, everybody that was there. Because we hear all the time curses. And they try to make these curses only apply to black people, only apply to Hispanic people, only apply to Native American people. And then they get mad when I say, well, I know other people who go through, tough times or similar situations. Oh, no, that's different. Then I get called coons and devils and all kinds of things. And I love my oppressor and all of that. I done heard it all. But if these curses apply to everybody that was present, right? Then them and all of their descendants throughout the rest of the generations, it would apply to as well. So I'm sorry to bust a lot of people's bubble, but using Deuteronomy 28 is not, it don't stand that strong. Israel as a whole was warned to keep the commandments and the laws. So therefore the curses would apply to those that sojourn. So we as Negroes or melanated people cannot solely take claim to the curses because they affect more people than just us. Lastly, we're going to close it out talking about Messiah. The Messiah instructing us how to treat the stranger by personifying himself as one. This was powerful. Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. When the Son of Man shall come in his esteem, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his esteem. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as the shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set up the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. We already confirmed this verse right here we read earlier. This stranger is xenos, the Greek word for stranger, which means the same as the Hebrew. Okay? And he says, naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Adonai, when saw we thee and hungered, and fed thee, or thirsty, and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked, and clothed thee? Or when we saw thee sick, or in prison, and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Damn. Prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was a hunger, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in, naked, and ye clothed me not, sick and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they also answer him, saying, Adonai, when we saw thee and hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee. Like when did this happen? They don't know. Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me. So he's talking about having a group of people on the left-hand side, a group of people on the right-hand side. And he's telling a group of the people, one of them, he's telling them, every time you have done something righteous to your brother, to your sister, to the stranger, to all of these individuals, I'm personifying myself as them. When you take care of people, when you serve people, when you love people, when you help people, you helping the Messiah. And he tells them that because of all of that, they're going to be rewarded. But then he tells the other group of the people who didn't do any of those things that they didn't do it to him as a stranger. Then he ends this, he says, all these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. So the Messiah even personifies himself as a stranger, as an instruction to Israel not to mistreat them or not to do any of these, wicked things. So keep this in mind when we out here and we saying certain things about people, or we treating a certain group of people or a certain race of people a certain way because we feel or we think or we were told or taught that they somehow less than us. Keep that in mind, because we all going to be kept. We all going to be held accountable. We all going to be called into judgment for the things that we do. And the Messiah, and he said in another part where he told that the people, get away from me, you workers of iniquity, for I never knew you. Right? So it says, Matthew 7:21-23, not everyone that saith unto me, Adonai, Adonai, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say unto me in that day, Adonai, Adonai, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you, depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Finally, to make a connection to the previous mention of Messiah, those who hang their hats on being bloodline Israelites or that somehow being a part of a physical lineage makes you better and entitles them to some kind of higher status will be humbled in the last days when Messiah rebukes them. So again, I will reiterate, basically, if
go ahead.
If you hold on, let me put this up here. There we go. So basically, I asked everybody in the beginning, if you thought you were an Israelite, say I, right? Because no matter what you look like, no matter where you come from, no matter what your race isn't even a real thing. If we're really gonna be real about it. No matter what color your skin is, if you believe on the Most High, you believe on the Messiah, you keep the Torah, keep the feast days, the Sabbath, all of those things, you are Israel. So go ahead, President S, and then I'll ask my final question.
Oh, I was just going to say, Messiah even says, he who humbles himself will be exalted, and he who exalts himself will be humbled. You know what I'm saying? So anyone attempting to exalt themselves, I'm particularly careful about this. I try to be anyways. Anyone who exalts themselves is going to get humbled. You know what I'm saying? And that's not a good position to be in at that point. You know what I mean? You don't want to be getting humbled, but if you humble yourself now, then you become exalted later. It's the it's a similar concept to delayed gratification, right? Going without something right now in order to gain it later, rather than trying to gain something right now and then ultimately ending up without it. You know what I mean? We've got to make sure that we maintain humility. It's trying to exalt ourselves and say, oh, I'm so much better because of my knowledge or because of whatever the case is. It doesn't even, whatever the case is, that is ultimately going to end you up getting humbled. You know what I'm saying? In the end, you just end up getting humbled, and it's best to humble yourself now and then later be exalted than to try to exalt yourself now and end up getting humbled.
Facts. So, go ahead, Brother Greg.
Oh, I was gonna say it. Yeah, that was good. I'm glad I was aligned with all that. Just for me, it's more just like a confirmation. Like you were saying, especially if we really want to be like the Messiah, no matter, and then you walk around, like you say, kiss my shoe or any, you're being very ignorant. That's not of Yah, that's of Satan. You're being like your father, the devil. If you treat anybody with disrespect, it just doesn't make sense. How would that be of Yah? That's, to me, it's just Satan came and deceived so many people. It just doesn't make sense. In the Ruah, it doesn't feel right doing it anyway. You really let the Ruah lead you. You wouldn't even want to do that. You wouldn't have the desire to even treat someone else with that type of respect. Even if let's say that was true, whatever. It was you're not supposed to treat anybody like that. So that was a good.
Well, and see, now here's the thing with the measure that we measure out is what we're going to receive back. You know what I'm saying? And Messiah told us to love our enemies, right? And so many, I've heard this so many times. Oh, only your enemy would tell you to love your enemies, right? That's not true at all, because what we reap or what we sow, we're also going to reap. If we're sowing hatred, then what are we going to get? You know what I'm saying? And should we even be surprised if we get that, right? But if we're sowing love, then what's going to come back to us is love, and that's over and over in scripture that, Elohim is not mocked. Whatever you sow, whatever, not just any particular category, but virtually whatever you sow out, you're going to reap, and Elohim's not mocked. So we want to make sure that what we're sowing is what we would like to receive. You know what I mean?
And I forget where it's at, but when it says that we all come from the same blood, I forget which book says that, but it just says we all come from the same blood anyway.
Yep, it's in Acts 17.
Mm-hmm.
And also it says that we are supposed to judge them by their fruit, right? So you got to ask yourself, what kind of fruit are you producing? Are you producing fruit that's hateful? Are you producing fruit that's loving and uplifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a Black man, I honestly say, like, I understand the plight of our people, and we've been oppressed for so long. We've been put at the bottom of the barrel for so long. I understand the temptation and how enticing it is to hear a doctrine that takes you from the bottom and puts you at the top, right? I totally get it. I fell into that for a period of time. I get it. I understand it. But when you are claiming to be a student of the word and a follower of the scripture, right, a keeper of the law, believe in the Most High and the Messiah, then you have to adhere to what's written in the instruction. And if the instruction isn't a reflection of the doctrine that you're believing in or keeping, then you got to make a change. Because at that point, the burden of proof, is on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about, loving your oppressor or anything like that. It's literally just following what we were instructed to do. I wish, unfortunately, due to history and the things that have occurred, I wish we could trace our lineages back. It would be dope to know what kind of, what tribe you're from or where you originated from. But a lot of us can't. It stops at, a lot of us, it stops in a few generations. But those of us who can go back, generation to generation, it stops at slavery. Now you're trying to find the slave ship with the manifest and tracing the names back, and now you got to go over to Africa with a port. You got to go from port to port and look to see, you're tracing all of that back, and it's very, very, very difficult, right?
And really, how accurate were the records of that, anyways? Chuck Missler talked about the genealogies in each of the Gospels, right? And I thought it was very interesting the way he put it. You've got various genealogies for different reasons, and the only gospel that doesn't have a genealogy. So he said basically you've got the Gospel of Matthew is like it's describing Messiah as a king, right? Then you've got the Gospel of Luke describing him as a man. You've got the Gospel of John describing him as Elohim incarnate, right? And then you've got the Gospel of Mark describing Messiah as the servant, right? And he said out of all those Gospels, even John, because John doesn't have an actual lineage in it, but it says in the beginning was a word, and it basically says that Messiah came from Elohim, which is why that gospel is talking about him as being Elohim, right? But the one gospel that doesn't have a lineage for Messiah is Mark, which is primarily describing Messiah as a servant, right? And to bring that back to what you were saying, how accurate are those records? Because really, no one cares about the lineage of a slave. You know what I'm saying? Like if someone was doing that, they wouldn't. All they care about is what can you do right now. You know what I'm saying? So how accurate would those records even be if you tried to look into them? You know what I'm saying? Which is why with Messiah being demonstrated in Mark as a servant, there's no lineage because no one cares about the lineage of a servant, right? And so, yeah, how accurate can any of that be? It would be super awesome. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's part of as I was talking about humbling ourselves, right? I had to humble myself and say, I'm likely not, anything to do with that. And I was likely never in any of these bloodlines, but, I'm going to take hold of it. I'm going to grab onto that covenant because I really care about the Most High. I really care about following his ways, right? Because I see that his ways are so much better than any of man's ways. You know what I mean? And that's really what we need to be doing, is trying to follow him with our whole heart. You know what I mean? Our whole heart needs to be wanting to observe what he tells us to observe,
And even if the records are, let's just say that they were pristine and they were 100% accurate, a lot of them were lost, destroyed, or just kept hidden, or maybe they went to a certain family of maybe a captain of the ship, and that family has a lot of the records in their archives, but they don't give that out to the public. Regardless, it's hard to find them, right? And like you said, whether you are of the bloodline lineage or whether you aren't of the bloodline lineage, the important part is the following of the Most High and his ways, aligning yourself with what he instructed us to do in the scriptures, not necessarily wasting your time with all of the extra things, right? Because whether you are or you aren't, you still have to do what he said to do. So why not just do what he said to do? If you're one of the ones who are blessed who do know that, like you have the records, you have the family lineage, and you can trace your thing back, okay, great. You have something that you can hold on to. But then while you're holding on to it, what are you going to do? You're going to do what he said do in his word anyway, right? So that's the big thing. That's what's important. And the reason why this lesson and this presentation is so important is because I've run into people who truly either don't know, and they feel as though because they're not, or they don't think that they are a bloodline Israelite, that it makes them less, right? But knowing this and giving them the information of what the Bible actually says, what it actually speaks of, can renew that encouragement for them to want to continue to, keep following in the Most High's ways. So with that being said, let me ask the same question I asked everybody in the beginning. Unmute your mic and say I if you believe that you're an Israelite, right? That's why I'm wearing this shirt. I'm an Israelite, not because I'm a Hebrew Israelite or because I feel like I'm of some bloodline lineage. I can't tell you how far my family goes back past 2 generations, right? I know my dad was an African American because I lived with him, I seen him, and I've heard of my grandfather, and I was told that he was also an African American. Past my great grandfather, past my grandfather, I don't know. But to me, it don't matter. I'm an Israelite because I keep the law, statutes, and commandments. I believe in the Most High. I believe in the Messiah. I take hold of the covenant, right? And I do my best to share this information and build and make disciples, like he instructed.
And really, let's be real with it, right? Whether we actually are bloodline Israelites or not, every single one of us has done something that Scripture says we should be cut off for. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Every single one of us. And so we all have to be grafted back into the olive tree, whether we're a natural olive branch or not. You know what I'm saying? Which is all what Romans 11 says. So whether we're naturally from the olive tree or we're a wild olive branch, we have to be grafted into that. So
absolutely.
I know I went through the whole in Jeremiah where it talks about the Gentiles will, they'll wake up and they'll say, oh man, I've inherited nothing but lies and vanity from my fathers. You know what I'm saying? Let me seek out the Most High and his ways, and I went through that, I recognize, hey, it's been nothing but lies and vanity. And how many of us can actually say that our grandparents were keeping the Torah? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if they weren't, then what have we inherited? Lies and vanity,
Mm-hmm.
And that's most of us. That's most of us.
Yeah.
So, Brother Greg, you said I originally, and you recently said that you already were of that kind of understanding, and you glad that you kind of was in that alignment. Sister Andy, you said I. Is it still another I?
Definitely.
Is that I a little bit stronger now after seeing all of this?
Sure is on my end.
And I, sorry,
Who said
my
that?
I in there.
Cindy?
Yes.
You said I. Look, Sister Ava. You said I, literally.
Yeah, Captain.
Sister Tess, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say I here too, because now I have a better understanding.
Yes.
Honestly, I know either way we're grafted in, but from a lot of what I've seen and heard, it's like I wasn't quite sure, how exactly that played out, especially with me, my skin color and my origins and stuff. And it's like, well, like you said, though, it's like I can't go back any further than my great grandmother. That's the furthest I can go back. So I don't know anything about my family. All I know is I was raised by a bunch of Catholics, which is
Yeah. I mean, if we could go back that far, then there wouldn't be Ancestry.com making money for recording our DNA and stuff,
Exactly.
And doing who knows what with that DNA.
Absolutely.
But I thank you, because that gives me clarity, and it just feels good on the inside to know that no matter what, I know I'm grafted in, but it's just a good feeling to know that some of the things that I've heard, that people have pointed out aren't really true.
Exactly. Like, I can't remember how long ago it was, but mom or someone told mom that because of her skin color that we can't be grafted in. It was like, wait a second, but no, that's not true. So
I know no matter what we can
Yeah.
be grafted in, but like I said, this gives me a lot more clarity, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All praises to the Most High.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that really goes back to with Samuel going to anoint the king, and he goes to the house of Jesse, and he goes through all of Jesse's sons, and he's like, and Elohim tells him, "Oh, I'm not choosing him. He's not going to be the king. He's not going to be the king. He's not going to be the king." And he's like, "Do you not have another son?" And then they bring out David, and David's like the least physically fit, the least all this stuff. And he's like, "Surely this can't be the king of Israel." and Elohim says, "You look at the outward appearance, but I judge the heart," right? And Messiah even reiterates that by saying not to judge by the outward appearance, but to judge with righteous judgment, right? And so you can never really know. I mean, you can if you even look at mixed race families, right? Quote unquote, because there's not really any races, but if you even look at mixed families, and you could have a father who was a bloodline Israelite, and he marries a Gentile, and then that Gentile or that offspring would be considered an Israelite by blood because the father, but then they marry a Gentile, and then that offspring, still considered an Israelite, marries a Gentile. You can look at them and not even know. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't even be able to tell by looking at them. But by the lineage, they would actually still be an Israelite. So looking at outward appearance is it's deceiving. The old saying, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? And that's just really another way of saying don't judge based on what you're seeing, but rather use righteous judgment, as Messiah said.
Facts.
And judge. You will know them by their fruit. It doesn't say, Messiah says you'll know them by their fruits, right? It doesn't say you'll know them by the texture of their hair. You feel what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So yeah.
So, what about you, Sister Jasmine? You an Israelite? Sister Zakaria? See, you unmuted your mic. I don't hear you. Faith over fear. Chief Sims. Sister
Wait, yes, I do have a sidebar question.
Hold on. Get your questions. I'm going through everybody now. Y'all Israelites?
I. You gotta say I.
I.
Chief Sims.
I. Sorry.
Princess Kai. Princess Kai. I ain't hear you.
I is getting ready for school tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Kaya, you gotta say.
Are you an Israelite?
Are you an Israelite? Say I. I.
Even if they're adopted. You're my little sojourner.
They're adopted. Oh, man.
Is that lawyer Keto her joke?
Oh boy. Let me go ahead. I got you, sis. Yeah, something was going on with a mic, but she said, which is I. Khan is yes in Hebrew. So I don't know what Jasmine is at, but for the most part, you know, we had some people that were quiet, didn't mention anything, and we had some ayes, but everybody it sounds like it's a unanimous aye after hearing all that information, which is good, because not just because you're acknowledging that you agree with the presentation, it's because you're acknowledging that you agree with scripture, right? And now you're being made aware of who you are according to the scripture, regardless of where you come from, right? So take that with you, right? Hold on to that. But don't lose sight of what the mission is and what we're supposed to be doing, because we're supposed to be consistent in our obedience, right, to the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, go ahead, Sister Kaylee, ask your question.
Okay, so sidebar question. When y'all are talking about the fruit, right? I was thinking about it. And I was like, okay, so if we know a tree by the fruit it bears, is it talking about the fruits of the spirit? That's what I was thinking, because like obviously by the fruits, you're expecting them to be like good, but I think it's talking about the fruits of the spirit. Like if the person has like joy and peace and all that stuff. What you think?
It's both. It's both. It's fruits of the spirit, but it's also, what kind of fruit are you producing, right? Like, for example, I was approached maybe like 5 years ago initially with a attempt to convince me to become a Old Testament only Hebrew, right? To just denounce the entire New Testament, including the Messiah, and only believe in the Old Testament, right? And then several times after that over the years. But one thing that me and Professor S have talked about this and confirmed, me and Sister Zakaria and I have talked about this and confirmed, every time I have encountered someone who is Old Testament only, right? The spirit that they exude is a spirit of arrogance and hatred. And just on that alone, before even being presented with any information, they are displaying their fruit, right? Judge them by their fruit. If everybody that I talk to has this same spirit on them, right? Why would I even, aside from my scholarly, right, and examining the whole matter, but aside from that, but why would I want to even entertain that, right? Now, I eventually studied on my own, right, did my own research to see if, their claims had any validity to them, right? But just at a first glance, a first impression, if everybody that I've seen that's talking about Old Testament only, they're casting insults, they're trying to belittle and demean others. That's not.
It didn't feel like they were coming from a place of genuine concern and care.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's those spirits of anger. Like I've noticed that too with certain groups, cults, whatever you want to call them. It's like you said, that fruit bearing, they're like I say, angry or hateful or talking about other people, and they're like, that's not. How is that going to help you in life? And better yourself and help other people. And if you have a congregation and you teach them to do the same thing, that's not making the world a better place.
And here's the thing. Even when someone is in error, you can tell if they're on the right path, right? You can tell if they're on the way, because everyone has accepted some error in their life, right? Myself included. Everyone could say, yeah, I was deceived about something before, right? But you can tell if they're on the right path by the fruits they're displaying, right? Even when someone's in error about something, it's the fruit that lets you know, are they trying to get on the trying to go the right way, or are they just doing this because of vanity?
Truth, brother.
Absolutely. So to plainly answer your question, sis, it's both. So is this individual happy? Do they have shalom, peace, happiness, welfare, prosperity, joy, right? Are they a good and kind individual, right? And then fruit in the regards of the people who they are dealing with, or the people who have come from their tutelage, or the people who they spent a lot of time with that, they rubbed off on, basically, right? How are they, right? I could tell y'all all day, I could speak until I'm blue in the face and say how, great of a man that I am, or how righteous that I am. And I could come up with all of these different things, right? But none of the words that I say matters anything. And none of that matters. Now, if you speak to the people who know me, speak to the people who spent time with me, speak to the people who learned with me and learned from me, right? Who've been able to bear witness, to those types of qualities in me, or who can attest on my behalf, or who exude those same qualities, maybe I rubbed off on them, right? Look at those individuals. That is the fruit that bears. And then you can judge me by my fruit and see if anything that I say is in alignment with what my fruit is.
Yeah,
right?
And as what does Proverbs say? It says, let the lips of others praise you and not your own. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. So like anybody could say, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. But no, let me see. That's why they tell you, like, watch what people do, watch their actions, not necessarily their words. Yeah. And it's a little bit harder and nowadays because everybody's on social media and they put up this facade of perfection on social media. But then when you spend time with individuals, there's things that you can catch on, like, you say you're righteous, but I'm seeing some certain behaviors, some certain characteristics, some certain traits that are about you, and those don't come off as righteous to me, right? Or how people treat people, those are the fruit. So both fruit are in play in that context.
I don't think I would ever call myself righteous. I would say I'm aspiring toward righteousness, right? But I would never consider myself to be righteous, man.
Absolutely. Anybody else got any questions, comments, concerns, points they want to bring up before we close on out?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So we're, just to be clear, we're saying if you don't have at the least the start of wanting to keep, or the heart to want to begin to keep the Torah, you're not an Israelite, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then, so does that mean, are we suggesting that only Israelites are going to inherit the coming promised kingdom?
Correct.
Okay. So everybody who say they love Jesus and God but don't keep the Torah, we are kind of saying that according to Scripture, A plus B equals C, right?
Right.
Okay. All right.
Correct. Because what did Messiah say? He said, if you love me, you will do what?
Keep my commandments.
There you go. What you was about to say, Drew?
The gates of the New Jerusalem have there's 12 gates, and they're named after the 12 tribes of Israel. So in order to enter one of those gates, you would have to be a part of one of those tribes, whether physically or through the spirit of adoption. Yeah.
Correct. I've heard the little like condescending comments about it. I don't see where it says spiritual Israel. But
when someone's legally adopted, back then, when you legally adopted someone, it was there was like no question. It wasn't like even questioned if that person was your child or not. You know what I'm saying?
And so tell me this, how seriously should people take this consideration? Because I don't think that, whether people initially believe it or not, right? How seriously should people take this and at least look into it?
Now, the first step, obviously, is believing on Messiah and repenting, right? But then you have to recognize, what are you repenting for? You're repenting for sin. And what is sin? Scripture says sin is transgression of the Torah. So if you're repenting for transgression of the Torah, then what is the 180 opposite direction of transgressing the Torah? Is keeping the Torah, following the Torah. So now someone, I'm not here to judge. I mean, someone could have a relationship with Messiah and not have gotten to the point where they've recognized they need to keep the Torah. I'm not going to be the one to judge that. But I would say definitely you should continue to go further. You should continue to dig deeper. Don't just hang your hat on one thing and just remain stagnant at that position. You know what I mean?
I would say if you're in that moment, don't die.
Yeah.
Don't die before you can get to that next step that he's talking about. And like, to answer your question, people should highly consider, looking into that. Because here's the thing, throughout the entire Bible, we're told to obey the Most High. And then he even went to even help us out even more so by specifically outlining what to obey, right? This is throughout the entire Bible. We've seen examples of people who do not obey and what happened to them, to include an entire nation of people going into captivity after captivity after captivity. We've seen smaller examples of people who didn't obey, who were killed, who were destroyed, who were swallowed up, who were burned, who were tossed to and fro and eaten alive, all of these different things, right? Because they didn't obey. Then the Messiah comes to the scene and he says, I am coming from my Father to reiterate what he's already given you, what he's already told you in his instruction, in the prophets. And I'm reiterating with his message because my message is not my own. I'm telling you exactly what he's told me to tell you because he sent me. And I'm telling you, keep my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. I didn't come to do away with his instructions or those whom he sent. He said, I didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets, right? But to fulfill, right? And we confirm fulfill is to teach the Torah as it was supposed to be taught, right? He is the Torah incarnate. He is the physical manifestation of the word, the physical manifestation of the Torah. So he's come in his essence, in his existence, to reflect the instruction that the Father has given us. And he reiterates and properly guides us back off the, because we were veering off the path. So many people were getting caught up with, okay, is it Torah? Are we supposed to follow the elders? Is it this oral law, or is it, you know, what they told us we're supposed to be doing? And he came again and he said, listen, you have heard it said, blah, 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 but I say unto you, blah, blah, blah. So he's giving correction. He's steering us back onto the path. And all of it is obedience. All of it is obedience. So for anyone at this point in the juncture, when this entire book, right, this entire book is telling us to be obedient, for us to try to find certain scriptures, and this little portion of it, which we're reading wrong and we're misinterpreting to try to justify and say that everything that's in this entire book that tells us to be obedient, for all of a sudden now we don't have to be obedient. You are absolutely asking for destruction, and there's going to be no reprieve for you at all. And I'm not saying that to be harsh. I'm not saying that to be, I'm being 100% honest, because I'm telling you because I love you. I love you all, and I want you all to be able to make it. So we can't just use there to try to throw everything out. It was obedience in the beginning, it's obedience in the end. Even in the Revelation, all the way at the end.
Yeah. What does it even say at the end? It says those who have the testimony of Messiah and who keep the commandments.
Yeah, I'm not about to get it right now for you.
Just keeping the commandments is not good enough. You have to have the testimony of Messiah, and just having the testimony of Messiah is not good enough. You have to also be keeping the commandments.
But if I can say this from a Christian's way of looking at it, because I know Christians, and what they say is Messiah gave us 2 laws, and everything else was hung to the cross. So they think that they read past it. It's like, are they giving up to a delusion or something because they won't accept the truth? Like, should I stop trying constantly to plant seeds, or, you know, I don't know if I'm doing more harm, because people get very defensive on their beliefs and what they already think they know, or what they do know, or they've been taught.
Like, they know it's a lie, but they still choose to.
I don't think they know it's a lie, though.
The one person does. She does. And
well, see, here's the thing. Have they received the love of the truth? Because that's what Timothy talks about. Those who have,
you're right.
Received not the love of the truth, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. I mean, it's plain and simple. You have to do all kinds of spiritual and mental gymnastics to be able to come up with the idea that it's okay to disobey God and he's fine with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or
Seriously.
cherry pick and just, okay, well, I won't kill nobody, but I'll do whatever I want.
It's really not even that confusing to clearly identify what obedience is. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
People have made it confusing. The enemy, who is the author of confusion, because Elohim's not the author of confusion. He tells you straight up one time or multiple times the same thing and says, just do this in multiple different ways, multiple different times. This is what you're supposed to do. He's not the author of confusion. So whenever there is any confusion, it's coming from the enemy, and it's not. I would always err on the side of obeying what God says rather than saying we don't have to. You know what I mean?
Here's the difference, right? Because I was a Christian for many years, so I understand the theology of Christianity, the mindset of a Christian, and everything like that. But here's the thing: this is a difference. An individual has to have the capacity to want to seek, right? To have the capacity to want to seek the correct answer, and then be able to make the adjustment if they find themselves in error, right? If you don't have that capacity, regardless of what you were taught. Listen, I was raised on the Trinity. I was taught all of this stuff, and I was heavy in the ministry, right? But in the essence of me, there was always a part of me that was willing to receive correction. And if I did receive correction and it was righteous correction, I would adjust and make the change. It might have been in specific instances, because obviously all the truth didn't just hit me at once, or else I probably, wouldn't even be here. I'll probably be putting together all of these different, books and manuscripts to just send out to everybody so they can have the truth, right? But what I'm saying is you got to have a part. It's a part of you. And I've had conversations with individuals who they were willing to receive the information. They were willing to look into the information. And if there was correction that was there, they were willing to take it and apply it, or at least pray on it and see if there was any legitimacy to whatever the information that they received. But then you have other individuals that are just so caught up in the way they were raised, the doctrines that they were brought up, the traditions that they were brought up, that they just reject any new information. There's a difference. You got to be able to, and some people are easier to get through to than others. But I know some really stubborn, arrogant people who were able to come to the knowledge of the understanding of observance of Torah. And if they can do it, anybody can do it. So it's not a matter of just, sometimes it's your approach, sometimes it's, certain things that are various variables that are at play, right?
And maybe at this point it's not their time. You know what I'm saying? We all come into this not in our own timing, right? We come into this in God's timing. Elohim determines when we're going to come into it, if we are. You know what I'm saying? It's all in His timing, and just plant the seeds. And even if they don't start blooming and blossoming into fig trees right away, you know what I'm saying? Plant the seeds and see what happens. Maybe years down the road, they'll come across something, and then they'll remember something you said, maybe not even remember that you're the one who said it. And then all of a sudden that seed begins to germinate in their mind, and they come to this realization. You know what I'm saying? That's what planting the seeds is about. It's not about instantly being like, oh, see, I've converted this person over to believing the same way as me. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's rather just about putting a little bit of truth into their mind and letting it sprout, letting it germinate on its own, because we can plant the seeds, but who waters the seeds, right? Who waters that seed? Who germinates that seed? Who causes it to grow, right? It's not us. We don't cause it to grow. Elohim does. All we do is plant it.
Right.
Amen.
And that verse was Revelations 22, verse 14. And it says, "Blessed are they that do His commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city." Now, this is the Messiah saying this, right? This is in blue in my book, and it's probably in red in other people's Bibles. But if the Messiah is saying this, and He says, "Blessed are they that do His commandments," who is His? Who is He talking about? He's talking about the Most High, because it's already the Messiah speaking.
Yeah,
what is His commandments? His commandments are the Torah. His commandments are the Torah. It's right there at the end of the book in Revelation. So, like I said, I get all of the different, I get all of the different justifications.
Yeah, I've been there myself. I grew up hearing all of these justifications. You know what I mean? I've been there too. And I get that perspective to some extent, right? Because I've been there, but at the same time, I can't reconcile it or make any sense of it anymore, because it's pretty clear. I mean, you're going to take a third of a book and say that nullifies the whole rest of the book, and that it's supposed to, and it was always intended for it to, and it doesn't even make sense. Even though it says eternal and everlasting and all that before, Mm-hmm.
So I get something to add to this, and it's scary, and people. It's so much easier to kind of hang on to the doctrine of Christianity, I guess. We're like, all you got to do is believe. So many of y'all know that my grandma is going through, stuff, and she's on hospice and everything right now. And when she was in the hospital, it's kind of like she had this long lost hope. So I came in, I'm like, you know what? We about to save your soul. I'm reading her the scriptures, and it seemed like everything God was having me to read from of her or to her was the Old Testament, like Jeremiah, about how the Israelites is failing to turn their ways. And it was odd, because it was like, if I was on my deathbed, would I really want to just keep hearing this depression stuff, this depressing, rain, wrath, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, God, can we have something, a little more lively to hear? But hey, I'm obedient, or try to be. So I was reading her that. So,
keep going. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
All right. So, I'm reading her this, and she knows that I'm considered Hebrew, and she knows we changed diet and stuff like that. So I went and told her, I was like, look, we're going to start with your diet. So I told the hospital, take pork off the menu, because she came, they had sausage one day, and I was like, Grandma, don't eat that mess. I was like, let's just start here. And I sent it to her, like, let's read it for yourself. I said, this is a start. So took it off, and I went up to her another day at the hospital. It was night, and she was kind of asleep. So I'm praying over her and stuff like that. And something that came to me that God said was what you said, Akeem, was like, they have to first want to draw close to me. And I was like, okay. Because I started feeling like I'm just forcing something on her. Now, Grandma is and has been Catholic her whole life. But I'm asking God for mercy for her, because this is the best way. She's living the best way she knew how. If the church say go to church every day to be saved, she went to church every day or every Sunday as best as she could. She gave, she tithed, she's kind-hearted, good woman. All right. So she's out the hospital. Okay. And it seemed like when she comes out the hospital, not that her condition is so much improving, but I started like feeling forced even more. So other family started coming, and it's like she didn't want me to cook or prepare anything for her, because I'm trying to put the turmeric and all the stuff that we talked about in there, cancer killing. She asked my mom for some liverwurst. I'm like, woman, I thought we just talked about this. Like, I thought we was putting up pork, But again, that was my wanting for her. And I'm realizing, like, okay, she's not getting it. I understand. It's a process. But for me, I'm like, okay, you clearly, they send you on your deathbed. You don't have that much time. Like, we got to try to change your heart, little by little. So anyways, she said something to me. This was the point. I said, Grandma, now before you take a bite of this sandwich, I want you to think about something. I said, if you feel that in your faith that you don't have to walk a certain way according to the Torah, I said, prove it. I said, prove it to yourself, because I have newfound knowledge that says we have a certain way to live and rules to follow in y'all's kingdom. I said, I can prove that to you. And I've showed you some things. I said, no, you prove it to yourself that what you're about to eat is okay. And I walked away. She ate the sandwich. I came back later that evening, and she said this to me. She said, I've been walking with God for 76 years. I don't think that just because I don't change my diet that he's going to throw me away. And I paused, because I didn't want to speak out of pride. I didn't want to, you don't talk for God. And so I just kind of stopped. And I did say something else, but man, what would y'all have said? I would love to get insight on that.
I'll be completely honest. I would have just left it at that. I'd have been like, that's your decision. I've told you what I've shown you what Scripture says, and it's your choice. And I wouldn't even cast judgment as far as saying definitely she's saved or lost. I wouldn't even say that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I'd just leave it at that. I'd be like, well, that's your choice, because you can't force. I've learned the hard way that you cannot force someone to think and behave a certain way. You just can't. And all that's going to happen is you're going to aggravate yourself and the other person. You know.
Right.
I would, you know, I mean, if they came to me and asked me my opinion again, I'd give it to them. I'd be like, yeah, no, I don't think it's good. It's not healthy. It's not right, but it's your choice. Right? I would not say that I would agree with their choice. I'd say, you know, I disagree with that strongly. I think it's probably a poor decision, an unwise decision, but, once again, you can't force anyone to think or believe or feel a certain way or behave a certain way. You just can't. They have their own choices to make, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Professor S. I would pretty much did similar like what you did. So I believe you did what you were supposed to. You showed scripture, you prayed over her, you brought it up, and then you planted the seed, and from there I'll just probably pray in private. That's what I would do. Like you already, you know, like I said, she said no, or we're gonna do this. Okay, I love you, Grandma. And I'll just pray in private for her from that point.
Yeah, and
that's what I would do. I think you did everything right. To be honest, I mean, you did what you could, and what I believe what you were probably sent to do. And who knows? Like you say, yeah, like Professor S says, not for us to, because again, the Bible does say it's not for us to say who will go up or down. Like we don't know that. To be honest, it's not for us to say that, but we do our best to try and show people the truth, and from there is up to, you know, Yah's grace and mercy how that's gonna work out. But yeah, that's just
I would say it depends on your relationship with the individual, right?
That too, yeah.
Everybody has different dynamics. Depending on your relationship, you know, you might have that relationship where you could say, speak your mind, speak your opinion, regardless of how they feel or what they do. I mean, if you have one of those types of relationships, I mean, you can try to get your last 2 cents in, but obviously at that point they've made their decision. If anything is to be said, I've said this in the past where I said, you know, if me living my life according to a certain way, following these so-called rules that may or may not be relevant anymore, right? But if I live my life according to this and I die, right? If it's not true, then I've only wasted however long I lived, right? But if it is true, I've gained an eternity. Now, on the flip side to that, if you live your life not obeying these rules, right? And I'm saying rules is because how people perceive it, right? If you're not living a set apart lifestyle and keeping the Torah and you die, now there's an eternity that you have to answer to, as opposed to the potential of wasting, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, however long you live, doing it, right? So I would probably say that as my last thing and walk off, because at this point is, if I'm right, then, there's some answers that there's some judgment that's going to be had. If I'm wrong, no harm, no foul. I didn't eat pork, so I lived a more healthy lifestyle. I didn't, mix certain fabrics. I didn't farm a certain way, so my produce was better. The vibrational frequency of my body was always in a heightened state. I always treated people with honor and respect, right? I lived a very giving lifestyle and all of these different things. If I'm wrong and I'm not supposed to keep this, but I still lived a very, I would say, meaningful life.
Yeah, you would have a better quality of life.
But if I'm right, right, you see what I'm saying? So, but if I don't have that relationship with the individual, I agree with Professor S and Sister Ava. I would probably just say, okay, we can agree to disagree. It pains me, hurts me, and I would pray for the individual. But I would definitely pray for the individual, because we can't pray for them once they've already passed on. It's sad to think about our family members that have already passed on and the lifestyle that they lived, but you know, we can't intercede on them once they've already gone. So I would probably, you know, just walk away. But with that being said, on a more positive note, let me pull this comment back up here. Man, shout out and Shabbat Shalom to brother John Boy, man. This brother right here is an OG in the music. We did a couple songs together. I appreciate you for tuning in, King. You was a staple in the truth music community for sure. We gotta link up again. We gotta do another collab. Anybody else got anything before we get out of here? All right. Well, for those of you guys watching at home, whether you're watching it on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, watching on YouTube, the recording of this, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. And for everybody here on the panel, thank you for y'all questions. Thank you for all of the things that you guys added to the discussion. I appreciate all of y'all. Thank you from, you know, and all praises to the Most High for everyone, you know, having the understanding of where they stand with him in regards to who you are, right? I give him all honor, praise, worship, and esteem in regards to, you know, that, because that was why I believe he put it on my heart to even, you know, share this information tonight. So all praises to him for that. You know, may the Most High bless you guys, keep you guys, campus angels around each and every one of you, uplift you, and give you peace, prosperity, joy, happiness, and welfare. That is shalom in the Messiah's name. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I'm gonna play the song "Push Through" with my John Boy. You know what I'm saying? As we go on up out
No
here.
matter what, I know you trying to make it. You're covered by the blood, and it's on you like a blanket. So never take it off. Keep burning like a bush. I'm here no matter what. Just give a little push. Listen, push through the pain, the heartbreak, sorrow. Make it through the day and look at tomorrow. Came into the truth, had to let go of the lies. Humble myself and swallow my pride. They say we in the cult, man, ignorance is bliss. They don't understand true holiness. Why I serve the Most High, ready to lose it all. Friends, family, money, he created them all. If you're looking for the truth, prepare for what you find. It's so many lost, cause the blind leading the blind. But Yasha coming back, and I'll be glad when he do. To know if I make it, so I gotta push through. Ain't got nothing to prove. Just focused on the Most High. Yeah. A higher knows my flaws, sees all my mistakes. He didn't put me on the path to be a reprobate. Strip away the ego, learn my inner self. Hustle in the word, build spiritual wealth. False doctrines will come and I'm knocking them down. Stay focused on the task, not carnally bound. Cause sin is in the flesh, Romans 7:23. And its wages only death, cause ain't nothing for free. Whether doctrine or claims, scripture or names, Sabbath or fringes, numbers or James. You're chosen by your higher, I'ma tell you what to do. It's real no matter what, you gotta push through. And I'ma keep doing what I do. Hey, I'll talk to him one time.
Okay, avoiding the lake of fire, But for some, hell don't get hot as this. We hoping to be chosen, but praying just to get out of this. We fell short of the glory, and once we did acknowledge it, he took our souls off punishment, and then he polished it. Now we shining like rays, so they calling us the light. But them demons giving beatings, now they calling us to fight. We was hated and demised, undersized, we was undermined. Now they seeing we the sons of God, now they colorblind. 1,000-year peace is all up in our reach. Now we can go to sleep knowing we won't see defeat. There's future prophecies and they gotta come true. But until then, we gotta push through. Wow.
John Boy, the legend.
Yeah, that Ak is a legend for sure, for sure.